Good afternoon, and hello from the Paley Center for Media in Los Angeles to all of you joining us on our YouTube live stream. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you on the web and all of you here in person to the finals of the Next MacGyver Competition. You know, today, after thousands of ideas for series featuring a female engineer as a lead character were submitted from around the world, we'll get to hear the top 12 finalists' ideas as they pitch them before a panel of distinguished judges who you'll meet in just a few moments. Later, after a short break, we'll host a dynamic panel conversation on transitioning ideas like these from script to screen. It'll be moderated by a distinguished Paley Center trustee and the principal of Bloomberg Associates, Catherine Oliver. And then you'll be with us as we reveal the 5 winning finalists who each receive a $5,000 prize and will be paired with a mentor to help finalize their script. Truly exciting stuff, don't you think? Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge our partners for this event. USC's Viterbi School of Engineering. Thank you, USC. The National Academy of Engineering. Thank you. And the MacGyver Foundation. Thank you all. We'd also like to offer special thanks to our judges and mentors for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us today. And additional thanks to our sponsors, UEF, Google, Google and Ford for their generous support in making the Next MacGyver Competition possible. Thank you, sponsors. If you're following the conversation on Twitter, our hashtag is #TheNextMacGyver, so please use that. Tweet, Instagram. Those of you gathered here in person, take pictures. Turn off your flash, though, please. And don't take video because we are live streaming. People can watch the video as it's happening right now. And now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome our host. Today, you know, as we hear about television series which will ultimately expand our perceptions about engineering, we have a host whose work focuses on shifting the perceptions of computer science in media so as to diversify the field. She's been a champion of diversity throughout her career, and we're thrilled she's here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Program Manager of Computer Science and Education and Media at Google, Julianne Crommett.
Little do-si-do. Thank you so much, Renee. How's everyone doing post-lunch? Are we doing good? Energy. It won't be the first time I interact with you today, so we'll get cozy, get comfortable in here. I see some familiar faces and some new ones. As Renee pointed out, I lead all of the efforts around computer science education and media at Google. Really, as Google, we looked at the issue and the opportunity around getting more women into computer science. And when we did research, we found that the number 2 reason why teenage girls, both in high school and college, weren't pursuing the career was their perception of it. Not surprisingly, they saw it, they were least likely to follow it because of the stereotypes that they were seeing on screen. And so as Google, we said, well, we could work with Hollywood to fix that. Let's figure out how to do it and get everybody involved. And that's where my job comes in, and my team, Dorea Green is here from my team as well, representing. And I'm really excited for what might transpire today. And I ask all of you to remain engaged, ask questions, especially of our panelists in that discussion. I think that will be a marvelous discussion later on today. And also to think, what other stories are we not telling beyond today? And those of you who have a position to ask those questions to make things happen, I encourage you to do that after leaving the room today so that the conversation continues. Also, you can always find Dorea or myself if you want to continue the conversation as it pertains to Google. And with that, I know that we had a little bit of overview, but essentially all the 12 finalists will come up here. They'll each have 5 minutes to pitch their idea, and then 2 minutes of Q&A with our esteemed judges. And so without further ado, let's bring them out. Wanda Austin is the Aerospace Corporation President and CEO. She is also a member of the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. Please welcome Wanda Austin. Hey, Wanda. Doing well. Madeline DeNono is a great friend and CEO of the Gina Davis Institute on Gender and Media. Please join me in welcoming Madeline DeNono. America Ferrera is an actress and producer. You probably remember her from Ugly Betty and Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, among other films. She is also the founder of Take Fountain Productions. So without further ado, America Ferrera. Gabrielle Niemand, or Brie, is the head of Take Fountain Productions and is also a producer of films such as The Last Exorcism and The Thing. Please welcome Gabrielle Niemand. Maya Matarik is a professor and Chan Soon Chang Chair in Computer Science, Neuroscience, and Pediatrics. Wow, I love you already. She's also Vice Dean for Research at USC's Viterbi School of Engineering. Please welcome Maya. Tracy Mercer is Vice President of Development, Revelations Entertainment, and was executive producer on the hit show Madam Secretary. Please welcome Tracy Mercer. Clayton Kruger is Senior Vice President of Television at Scott Free Productions, 3001 The Final Odyssey. So please welcome Clayton Kruger. Roberto Orsi is a writer-producer. You probably know him from Star Trek, Scorpion, Sleepy Hollow, Hawaii Five-0, Fringe. Oh my God, I see a theme. I love it. Please welcome Roberto Orsi. You can do a dance later, though. Debbie Sterling is the founder and CEO of Goldie Blocks. If you don't know what Goldie Blocks is, there's an amazing engineering toy for girls to get exposed to engineering and building things. And so without further ado, Debbie Sterling. Valerie Weiss is a biophysicist and filmmaker and founder of PhD Productions. Please welcome Valerie Weiss. And last but certainly not least is Lee Zlotoff, MacGyver creator and executive producer. Lee? That's right. Judges Anthony Zucker and Lori McCreary very much wanted to join us today, but they were both called away to projects. They really send their best and will remain part of the competition after today as mentors working with some of our finalists. And now that everybody is seated, we'd love to welcome up an amazing man who leads the School of Engineering at USC, Dean Yanis Yortsos.
Well, thank you very much. It's a wonderful day, kind of a historic day for us. We never thought this day will come, but it's here. So we're really very, very, very pleased and excited and honored. About 5 years ago, the National Academy, and under the direction and leadership of the late President Chuck Vest, introduced the concept of the need to change the conversation and change stereotypes about engineering. And what better agent for this than Hollywood and its magic storytelling? Also, our own co-founder and alum, Andrew Viterbi, the co-founder of Qualcomm and the naming benefactor of the School of Engineering at USC, wrote an editorial at Forbes, and he said, "The first step to raise the profile of engineering and professionals is getting the mainstream media on board. Is it ridiculous to think that we can elevate the top minds within the scientific community to true celebrity status?" In the minds of people, and young people too, there's still a lot of stereotypes about engineers, who they are, what they do, and what they look like, how they affect our lives. And that's a pity, because in the words of the late President Chuck Vest, this is the most exciting era for science and engineering in human history. The most exciting era for science and engineering in human history. I have a short definition for technology. leveraging phenomena for useful purposes. It has nothing to do with devices, mathematical equations. Leveraging phenomena for useful purposes. That's what we do in engineering and technology. And it is this tremendous empowering attribute of engineering and technology, this idea that we truly can change the world, that we want to send out today. Innovation is no longer a straight line, it's exponential. More Fortune 500 CEOs have engineering degrees rather than law or business degrees. Engineers are restoring sight to the blind. They transform our energy. They're connecting us on social media. They create better medicines to fight untreatable diseases. They build the Disneylands and the iPhones that enrich our life and make our education and entertainment better. But as engineering is empowering society, we want the whole of society to also empower engineering. And here we face a challenge. Women, half the fraction of our population, are poorly represented in our field. Only 20% nationally of undergraduate engineering students are female. This number is different in schools like USC, but across the nation, only 20% are engineering undergraduate students are female. And this number really hasn't changed very much. This cannot continue and must change for our collective benefit, for injecting new, fresh ideas in our profession, and for innovation that will change the world. We must therefore change the conversation, just like professions like law and medicine have done before us. The actress Gina Davis has said, "If she can see it, she can be it." It is with this affirmative mindset that this competition came to be. In the summer of 2013, we partnered with National Academy of Engineering and Liz Zlotov, the creator of MacGyver, to start this competition. They agreed to be partners. 30 years after MacGyver first came on the air, we need some new heroes. Today, we're presenting 12 visions for the first great TV show with an iconic female engineer main character. Just like MacGyver, but in today's exponentially different world, she will use the power of engineering to leverage phenomena for useful purposes, to solve problems, enrich our lives, and create new opportunities, and win the day. This afternoon, if you look around you, we have some 30 talented Los Angeles middle and high school students here among us. One of these young ladies could be the personification of the next transformative figure in engineering, the next Bill Gates, the next Wanda Austin, the next Maya Matarik. The message we'd like to share with these young women today is that the new face of engineering is not the Dilbert of the cartoons. It's a face of bright women and men spanning societal, racial, and ethnic divides, smart, socially attuned visionaries that will make a difference. In short, they will have a face just like them. The TV concepts you hear today, and I hope they are glimpses of the great things to come, and the young people I see here today, I hope they are just the glimpses of the change that has been too long in coming. Thank you so much. We pledge to provide all the support of the School of Engineering and faculty, students, and resources when this TV series will become a reality. Bring it over to the USC campus, film it out there. We'll provide the resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dean Yortis. And I couldn't I'm echoing everything you've said. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And now to kick off our event, please welcome the Executive Director of the National Academy of Engineering, Mr. Al Romig.
Good afternoon, everyone. And as you might guess, I am an engineer. But I would also tell you that the engineers and scientists that are in this audience, who are of the same generation that I am, were driven by one grand challenge of the day. And the grand challenge of our day was the competition with the Soviet Union. And when the Soviet Union fell about 25 years ago, things went a bit adrift. And seeing that happen about 8 years ago or so, the National Academy started an effort to identify the grand challenges of engineering going forward into the future. There were 14 that were identified. They may not be unique. Other parts of the world may have slight variations of them. I won't cite them all, but a few of them, in fact, all of them are rather intuitive, but they include things like providing water, clean water for all, controlling cyber terrorism, controlling the nuclear threat, providing engineered medicines, reverse engineering the brain, things that make sense, things that will make our society better today. And an observation that we've made is that these 14 grand challenges are immensely motivating to young people. Maybe as motivating or more so than the grand challenge of the day was in the 60s and 70s for those of us that are in the latter stages of our career. And so perhaps someday we'll see TV programming coming out of the Next MacGyver that will actually use the grand challenges as a vehicle to stimulate and move this forward. I will tell you that in addition to students, the White House has also really bought into this. In fact, we'll see a video clip here in a moment showing support from the White House around the whole notion of engineering, the use of grand challenges, and so forth. I also know that when I was growing up, and the others of my generation, that things that we saw on TV and in the movies, whether it was scientific fact or science fiction, it's adventure films, they were all things that we found motivating. And we've had our era of programs about law, et cetera. It's time to have programs about engineering, and so we're very excited about this. And it would have never happened without Lee's inspiration up front, and then the support from our other partners at USC, the MacGyver Foundation with Lee, and the Paley Center here, and then from our core sponsors, the United Engineering Foundation, Google, and Ford. So I'd like to have you all thank one more time the sponsors and partners. And with that, let the show begin.
Thank you so much, Al, and thanks again also to all of the other sponsors. We feel honored to be in such great company of the partners and sponsors here. The show begins. The competition begins. It's a little Shark Tanky, isn't it? I love it. All right, but we're going to be real nice here. All right. So as said, each finalist will have 5 minutes to pitch, and then they will have 2 minutes for Q&A. I unfortunately have to be the bad guy, or bad gal, if you will, to cut us off at those marks because we have to get through 12 pitches. So we want to make sure that everybody has equal time. And I could not be more thrilled to welcome up our first pitch. Kristen Bobst is a Los Angeles-based ghostwriter and freelance new media writer. She is a graduate of the University of Southern California's Writing for Screen and Television MFA program and also has degrees from the University of Florida and Trinity College. She is the founder of the production company Pop Kraken, and her pitch is titled Dr. Taylor. Please welcome Kristen Bobst.
All right. Oh, this is super exciting. And so before I go into my pitch, I just like to let y'all know I have a vocal disorder. It's called spasmodic dysphonia. So if I come off as choppy, that's exactly what I say. I'll just kindly ask you to, bear with me.
You sound great.
Thanks. I don't know if I believe you, but thanks. All right, so Dr. Taylor is a television show about wearable technology and moreover about a really cool engineer who makes it. It is an hour procedural set in modern day Los Angeles, and it follows the adventures of the black cat outwitting crime solving Dr. Tilly Taylor. So Dr. Tilly Taylor is a wearable tech engineer who gave up a career in high fashion to pursue functional clothing after an incident where clothing literally saved her life. Then and there, she gave up the New York fashion scene to pursue a PhD in electrical engineering from USC. She consults with the FBI, and she helps solve crimes by examining, hacking, or creating items of wearable tech. Wearable tech is becoming such a hot topic, and it ranges from everything from, analog glasses to Google Glass to Microsoft HoloLens to smartwatches to shapewear undergarments, sports to biometric stuff to medical implants to exoskeletons to spacesuits. There's no limit to the possibilities, and yes, it can even include a bulletproof dress. So why this show? Why now? Well, that's exactly why we're standing here. We need new kinds of heroes, and Tilly Taylor is a new kind of hero. She proves that there's nothing weak about being girly, and there's absolutely nothing uncool about being brainiac. She proves that you can be both, that you can be anything you want to be. She's an aspirational role model, and this is a show that lends itself to a diverse cast. And it's close to my heart because, you know, I love MacGyver, and I want to see more people doing more things and more women. And she's a cool character who creates cool things and who does cool things, and she always has a trick up her sleeve.
Do we raise our hands?
Well, we can only take 2 for each to keep time. So yes, why not? Let's do it like a classroom. It's gonna be awesome. Valerie Weiss. Anyway.
Happy to, okay. First of all, I loved your pitch. I think it's so original and it really stands out, and it's such a fun world. When I was reading your longer treatment of it, the question I had was, it seemed to me like Dr. Taylor was the only crossover between the science and fashion world. Can you clarify that for me?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. So in her, people from her past would come back, and she still has a lot of links to the fashion world. She maintains her dress shop, so there'd be crossover, and it's not always going to be a crime solving, not always a murder. There could be other instances where she creates, you know, functional clothing for a specific thing, and it could be within the fashion realm.
It seems to me like it skews more towards fun fashion, and so I was just wondering what the science-fun balance is going to be.
Oh,
like.
right. So, for example, if there was a crime committed, she could hack someone's smartwatch, or if something.
You watch out.
I mean, that's the obvious kind of one. Or she could create tech to suit a specific need. Or she has a partner in the FBI she consults with, so she can make tech for her.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Were you, actually, I won't ask you a leading question. When I saw Bones the first time, I thought, Bones? Well, Bones is just a body, but then they actually managed to make something out of just bones. And so you're doing something out of fashion. Do you see any parallel to that and the idea that the fashion can be specific and general enough to get you to enough cases that it's a show? Like, have you thought about Bones? And if not, that's okay. And have you thought about how fashion, well, we all have, is anyone dressed the same here? Well, you 3, but that doesn't count. What do you think of that? Just talk about that if you can.
Absolutely, yeah. Prince Britton, she's a really exceptional character, and I had the same kind of question. So yeah, obviously there's bones in every murder, but I think there is a forensics angle to this. So she's not limited by just hacking tech. She can create tech, or she can work backwards from tech and reverse engineer.
Right on.
Is that the answer?
Thank you.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Next up, we have Wesley Berger. Wesley is a writer, entrepreneur, and technology executive, and the director of business development at the entertainment technology startup MediaHound. He received a BFA in writing for screen and television from the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts. Hailing from St. Charles, Missouri, Wesley now lives in Long Beach, California. His pitch is entitled Imagineers. Please welcome Wesley Berger.
So I know we're here to break some nerd stereotypes today, but I'm going to take ownership of the sweating thing a little bit. So science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke derived his 3 laws from a lifetime of prescient writing work. And the first 2 laws deal with the realm of possibility in science. But once something's possible, we need to understand how people are going to react to it. So his 3rd law says that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Imagineers is a series about the people that blur that line between technology and magic. It's the story of real Disney Imagineers who build thrilling rides, memorable experiences, and immersive attractions. Along the way, they're going to collaborate, argue, and grow as they confront Clark's 3 laws on a daily basis. So these eccentric characters are based on the real Disney Imagineers, my friends from USC's film and engineering schools, and also the engineering team at my tech startup. And I think that it's really important that we derive some comedy from those real life situations. So that's where we're going to get some of the puns, jokes, awkward situations, and other stuff that's going to give the show its sense of humor. The week to week of Imagineers is very similar to Mad Men. In every episode, inventive people brainstorm to solve creative engineering challenges that cross over with real Disney properties. So essentially, they're going to work together, they're going to argue, they're going to deal with each other's baggage, relationships, ideas, politics, and ambitions. And in every episode, we're going to build something. And the series focuses on Nadine Delgado, who's an electrical engineering and computer science major who gets her dream job as a Disney Imagineer. Of course, Nadine is very apprehensive about this, which is normal for her. Like many Imagineers or engineers of any type starting their career out at elite companies, she's not sure if she's good enough. Maybe some of you can relate to that lack of confidence. I know that I can. I was the nerdy kid who got made fun of in grade school. And now I work at a startup where everyone was the nerdy kid. I love going to work every day, but sometimes I feel like my life doesn't belong to me, like it belongs to somebody smarter. And I guess you could say I feel like an imposter some days. And I think that's exactly what Nadine is dealing with. As a kid in grade school, she always felt like she had a lot of pressure to perform. When she got a full ride scholarship to college, she was constantly worried they would take it away. So confidence is what we're going to see Nadine grapple with in this series. The pilot takes place on her first day, but Imagineering isn't a normal job, so they don't have a normal first day. She arrives at Disneyland, nervous as ever, and she finds out that she has to locate the hidden Imagineering office that's somewhere in the park. Along the way, she teams up with Scott, who's a brash aerospace engineer who will be her foil, friend, love interest, and rival throughout the series. Scott's heard that Imagineers who don't locate the hidden office by sundown get fired on the spot. So they both panic, and Nadine spots a stranger who's walking into an off-limits area of the park. They don't know him yet, but this is Tish, the head Imagineer who will become their mentor. So they tail this guy, they follow him into a secret back entrance that goes to his private lab, and they spot him working on a sort of top secret project. They can't totally see what it is, and then they scurry off to the main Imagineering lab. And when they get there, it turns out that they just found it faster than any Imagineers in history. And so they check out the main Imagineering lab, which is sort of this wonderful playground for makers. It's full of bleeding edge equipment and Disney relics and snarky robots. And it's the place where you're going to see most of the story sort of unfold as they prototype and build different things. But the cool thing about the show isn't the technology that'll be available tomorrow. It's the people who are working on the prototype today. So in the first season, we'll see Nadine take on leadership roles and work on more complex projects as she kind of embraces the confidence in her design and engineering abilities. And she'll also have a lot of fear when she hears rumors that there might be layoffs coming. And then she's going to take on some specific episode stories, and some of those are the idea that they go into the Pirates ride to fix some broken legacy animatronics, and it turns out that they dress up as pirates so that they can work on it without the park guests actually noticing that they're there. And then they're going to stay up all night to solve a tough physics problem that turns out to be for the Iron Man roller coaster, and get a special visit from Robert Downey Jr. and Neil deGrasse Tyson, who turn out to be best friends. This is a show about intellectual curiosity. It's a show about glamorous geeks that are proud and unique and defy the stereotypes we've seen on TV before. They're artists and designers and storytellers, and they want to engage their audience and have people experience awe and delight. So they're going to do all of this, and that's what you can expect from a show that's about the people who blur the line between technology and magic.
Bree, and then Wanda.
I love the tone of your show. Have you thought about how you might retailor it should a company that's not Disney related be interested?
That is a good question, and it's something I've put a little bit of thinking into, obviously. So the first kind of easiest answer to that is you go right up the road to NBC Universal, which also has the theme park component.
Yes.
Would probably be interested in this type of show. But when you take a bigger step back, the show's really about Nadine. It's about an engineer who's starting her career. So you can kind of look around town and think, where are some technology companies that really care about this topic that also happen to produce episodic television content? And there are a few. So I think Netflix would be interested. Obviously, at that point, you're moving a little further away from the Disney crossover, and there's other engineering stories, kind of R&D stuff that you're going to be telling. Obviously, Sony has Crackle. Yahoo's in the original business, and this is an issue that obviously Yahoo cares about. And the list kind of goes on from there. And you can take an even bigger step back and say, what are the three biggest companies in our technology zeitgeist right now? You've got your Facebook, you've got your Google, you've got your Apple. So I think anybody would want to watch a series about somebody's first day at Apple.
So you're saying you're fairly confident you can create entertaining television that's not solely required to have Disney characters in it?
Absolutely. And my office is hilarious, and it's going to be about real engineers and the funny situations that come up in these projects. So.
All right, Wanda.
Wesley, good story. Can you tell me a little bit more about your decision to make her an entry-level engineer and to address the confidence challenges that you have starting out? If the purpose of the program is to have positive role models, people already talk about how hard it is and how hard you work and the challenges. Have you thought about how you're going to strike the balance between being realistic about the fact that these are hard problems that people solve, and balancing the confidence challenge or the experience level that someone at the entry level is going to have?
Sure. I guess I just relate more to the entry level and really wanted to kind of relate to the main character in that way. And she's going to find these mentors and role models who she can kind of get that guidance from. So I think that's going to be very relatable. I think that there's got to be that structure of the little wins. So we have all these big technology problems we work on at my company, and you find ways through sprints and different ways of organizing to say, there's big problems that we're going to solve that are sort of these unsolved technology problems. How do we break that up and celebrate something? So I'm hoping to pick up a lot of small wins sort of episode by episode and kind of invigorate it that way. So I do think that there needs to be a place for characters of all ages and perspectives and engineering backgrounds. And there's some value in that experience. So there'll be characters that touch on that.
Thank you.
With that, we're over time, so I have to say thank you.
Thank
you so much, Wesley. I know. Man, I really want one of those canes, old school. So next up is Courtney, who was born on the east coast of Ireland, where storytelling is a national pastime. Wow, we have to have a drink later. That sounds awesome. A Guinness, probably, yeah. So it's no surprise that writing is his passion. He attended Newry and Kilkeel College and graduated with a degree in media studies in 2008. He now lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where he is pursuing script writing. His pitch is titled Kansas. Please welcome Courtney.
How you doing? He's doing, obviously, as you can see, it's called Kansas. We'll skip that part. 20 years from now, there may be humans living on Mars. And that seems really fictional, but NASA are actively working to have people reach Mars, and others like Mars One are planning to send people to live there permanently. And they're planning this by 2020, 2030. And Kansas is a sci-fi drama about the first 4 people to attempt to live on Mars. It's not set in a reality we won't recognize. This is our world. There's no war with an alien race or time travel. Like I said, it's our world as we know it, and these people are essentially the next generation of pilgrims, and they're trying to create a future for themselves and others. So think Apollo 13 meets the Mayflower. A privately funded space program is the reason this is possible, and they aim to create a settlement on Mars that will continue to grow and sustain itself. They choose 4 people to be the first to attempt this, and among them is main character Sophie Villeneuve. Now, she has been a civil engineer for over 20 years. She's worked all over the world building bridges, earthquake-resistant housing, and water systems. So she is more than qualified for the project. She's perfect. But she's not going for the challenge, and she's not going to be a hero or to make history. After the death of her husband and daughter, she sees this as a way to escape that loss. Now, while these 4 crew members have billions of dollars and a team of professionals behind them back on Earth, they are millions of miles away from help if anything goes wrong. So they're essentially alone, and they're going to have to rely on each other's expertise and their own innovation to survive Mars. Now, while episode 1 will join the crew at the end of their 6-month-long journey to Mars. It really takes that long. And they will orbit the planet and prepare to land. And flashbacks will explain things about Sophie, her reasons for going, why would anybody go there, and why she was chosen. And it will end with her taking her first steps on the surface of Mars. Now, following episode 1, the show will start to focus on the crew building a life and exploring Mars, while dealing with its dangers and the mental toll the isolation would take on you. Every week will bring a new problem, either from the planet or the technology keeping them alive. Mars has things like dust storms, which can ravage the entire planet for days, if not weeks, and it would cut off communication with Earth. Radiation is a problem. Mars doesn't have the same protection from radiation as Earth does. And things like the water and oxygen systems, if they fail, it's life or death. So Sophie's engineering skills will really come into play day to day there. Now, realism is an important component to the show. And for that reason, methods and technology used in reality will be used by the characters. And while there will always be human conflict and drama if you place people in this situation, the focus will always be on those methods of survival and the very real dangers of living on Mars. So it's not pretty and it's not glamorous, but it's not supposed to be. It's a show that tries to celebrate the intelligence, innovation, and determination of people like Sophie. And that's my pitch for Kansas. Thank you.
America.
Can you talk a little bit about the other characters on Mars with her and sort of what those relationships will be in the first season?
Yes, so we have Sophie and then Zoe, who's 20-something, and she's a computer engineer, and she gets chosen. She's fearless, and there's no problem going for her. And she doesn't have a relationship with her family, so she sees Sophie as a sort of mother figure, you know. And so she will be handling communications with Earth. That's her skill. She knows everything there is to know. We have Joe, who is the food engineer, because when they get there, they're going to have to set up food production so they can eat for the rest of their lives there. And that's his job. And we have Gordon, who's the doctor, just in case somebody, you know, an appendix bursts. Nothing that serious on Earth if you get to the hospital, but on Mars, you know, he's going to have to cut you open and do something. You know, he's going to have to improvise and innovate. And that's the 4 characters. In terms of other characters, they will be in constant communication with Earth. The leader of the project leader, Mark Hahn, he will be in communication with them, and people back on Earth. This isn't NASA, but they have qualified professionals, you know, ex-NASA people in that back on Earth communicating with them. And that's the 4 characters living with them.
Next question. Roberto?
For talking about the life of the series, perhaps, sometimes like when you see a film like Gravity, or I think the upcoming The Martian, you know, where you've got a problem solved to live for 2 hours, it's kind of one thing to do.
Right.
But over the course of a series, with 4 primary characters, do you envision other folks joining?
Yes.
Ways, how do you see growing the series, or do you want to keep it confined?
No, the plan is to keep growing the colony. And at the end of the season, they would be preparing to add 4 more people. They would send people up every 6 months or so, although that could be changed to, you know, you could add people during the season. So 4 people would travel up, maybe at the end of every season, 4 new characters, and that's how it would grow. You know, the plan, 4 seasons in, the Kansas settlement could be huge, you know.
Got it. Thank you.
You.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Next up, we have Shanee Edwards, who earned her master's degree in screenwriting from UCLA's film school. I know USC is here. All right. And recently made her directing debut with her short film, Wink. She is the film critic for the online magazine SheKnows.com and produces and hosts the web series She Blinded Me with Science. Her pitch is titled Ada and the Machine. Please welcome Shanee Edwards.
Hi. So my show is inspired by a real-life historical figure, and she's Ada Byron, Countess of Lovelace. The reason I love Ada so much is because she had this genius rebel brain. She's famous for creating computer programs for Charles Babbage's analytical engine way back in the 1800s, way before IBM or anybody else got into the game. Her father was this poet. He was a real scandalous dude, and her mom didn't want Ada to be anything like him, so her mother forced her only to study math and science, and thereby she created this sort of engineering prodigy in Ada, which was great because in the 1800s there was this industrial revolution and there was all this explosion of technology and machines clicking and clacking and steam trains, soaring through the countryside. But being a woman, Ada was really challenged to get people to take her seriously. In the show Ada and the Machine, she seizes an opportunity to go work for Scotland Yard, who's dealing with this whole new crime wave related to the Industrial Revolution. You have factory workers getting injured, there's child labor, there's medical quackery, but the biggest threat of all, and this is my favorite part, are the Luddites. Now, the Luddites, they had good intentions. They really wanted to protect workers' jobs and not have their jobs go to machines, which, we are still seeing that today. So the way they protested this was they would go around this gang of guys and they would smash machines and they would burn down factories and beat up the factory owners, and it was all very rock and roll, which is fine. But Ada has to bring down the Luddites. There's one little problem. Ned Ludd, the leader of the Luddites, he's 21, and he is a sexy bad boy. So whenever Ada's around him, sparks fly, and she's so frustrated because her mom wants to, marry her off. She's picked a suitor. She's planned a wedding. The last thing Ada wants to do is get married. She wants to be this modern woman, and here she is having feelings for this guy, Ned, who's bad. And it drives her crazy. So in addition to the Luddites, her partner will be Charlie Babbage, who is younger. He's going to be a little bit older than Ada. He's 25, and at first they have a hard time working together. She's a girl, and he's frustrated because she didn't go to university, because of course girls couldn't back then. But she's so creative, and she uses a chatelaine, which is like a 19th century version of a Swiss Army knife. And she's really good at solving practical problems using her little tool belt, similar to MacGyver. But the thing that I think is so exciting about this world, beyond, I'm going to give it like a steampunk aesthetic, is that the themes really are similar to stuff that we're dealing with today in our own technological revolution. It asks the question, does technology make our lives better or worse? And you could really argue both sides of that. I mean, the Luddites today are really just, cyber hackers and criminals. So I think that you could really explore a lot of what's going on in technology through the Industrial Revolution and through Ada Lovelace.
Questions? Madeline.
Love steampunk. So I have a question about that. So how is this historical fiction versus having her meet certain people along the way? I mean, the blending of reality versus retelling history.
Right, well, it's definitely inspired by history and definitely inspired by the real Ada Lovelace. The great thing about steampunk is that it's an alternate reality. So we can have real machines from the time period, we can have imagined machines from the time that weren't ever existing in that time period. She's also going to work on the analytical engine, which is the world's first computer with Charles Babbage, and program it and develop it and actually build it on the show.
Question, Roberto?
Why now?
Oh, well, gosh. I mean, we have cars that drive themselves. Now we have artificial intelligence happening. We're all struggling to keep up with technology and understand it. And this show would allow us to take a step back and look at the first technological revolution and see the lessons that they had to learn as they went through developing new technology. I mean, there was a lot of bad things that came out of it, a lot of really good things.
You could tell it today, in a sense.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Excellent. We actually have a little bit of time. Is there a slip question? Anybody breaking the rules? Ooh,
Goldilocks.
Debbie.
How much emphasis do you want to have in the show for the romance versus the engineering?
Okay. Well, there will be mostly engineering. I mean, the whole show is going to have machines, and she's going to be hacking machines through the whole thing. I could see her going undercover as a factory worker, you know, where they used to lock them in the factories, and she has to save the day when a fire starts and figure out how to use the textiles that they're making in the factory to get out of the burning building and that kind of stuff. I personally am developing a crush on this Ned Ludd guy. So I'm seeing him as a Jonathan Rhys-Meyers younger, you know, so that's just an exciting part for me. But yes, the emphasis will be on the technology.
Thank you so much, Shanee. Appreciate it. I don't know, it was great to hear Luddite in a pitch today. Anybody? Anybody? I was an English major to think. Anyway, next up is Beth Keser, who's a PhD and is a global leader in the semiconductor industry with over 17 years of real-world experience. She received her BS degree in Materials Science and Engineering from Cornell University and her PhD from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Based in San Diego, and she leads the Low-Cost Device Assembly Technology Initiative at Qualcomm. Her pitch is titled Rule 702. Please welcome Beth Keser.
This is a great audience. I often speak in front of large crowds, but the audiences I speak to are engineering audiences, and mostly men. So this is a unique experience for me, but I'm here to change that. Okay, my name is Beth Keser, and I'm an engineer who's been working in the semiconductor industry for many years. I know firsthand of what it's like to walk into an engineering meeting and be the only woman in a room of 10 men, 20 men, even 50 men. Yet I love being an engineer. I'm an expert in my field who gets to travel the world to speak at conferences and evaluate new technologies. I want to show young women that being an engineer can be exciting, rewarding, and yes, even fun through my show, Rule 702. In Rule 702, Mimi, a science and engineering prodigy, decides to forego corporate life in order to pursue a career as an expert witness. She travels across the country to testify in torn from the headlines cases, but in each case, she finds a mystery that requires science and engineering to uncover the truth. Why do I love Mimi? Well, she has earned dual PhDs in aerospace and computer science engineering from USC. She lives in LA too, okay? She is an expert in drone technology, and she started her own firm right out of grad school. But she sold it to a larger firm because she wanted to make sure her product was successful. The law firm who negotiated the buyout of her startup company asked her to do expert witness testimony, and she did, and she loved it. Why will young women love Mimi? Well, she's confident and strong-willed, but also feminine and has a great sense of style. She breaks the engineering stereotype. What are you guys looking at? Okay. They also love Mimi because she's like MacGyver. She likes to help people. She volunteers with Girls Who Code and lets her unemployed brother crash on her couch. She's also like MacGyver in that she uses life hacks for quick fixes. She'll open up her brother's beer can, dump it out, and put it behind her router to boost her Wi-Fi signal. Or she'll use a 9-volt battery to charge her cell phone in a pinch. Now, in my experience, engineering is about teamwork, so this is an important part of the show. Mimi's team is her group of close-knit college engineering friends who are smart, successful, ambitious women like Mimi who love to solve engineering challenges. They help her solve the mysteries that she encounters. There's Kate, a bioengineering assistant professor, Hannah, an electrical engineer turned patent attorney, and Sophia, a computer science whiz. They communicate constantly via video chat, texting, and IMing. This is not a courtroom drama. This is an action adventure where Mimi and her friends solve problems before your eyes using computer simulations, local laboratories, and maker studios. Flashbacks to college courses and previous lab work demonstrate the science Mimi is using to solve problems. For instance, you'll see Mimi testing the lightweight drone that she designed for her thesis. This drone is now autonomous and follows her around her bungalow like a flying smartphone that gives her information. Also, the science can be shown animated on the screen, so equations can come to life. Schematics of drone robotics can pop on the screen to make it very visual. I like Mimi because she's a complex character. As a teenager, she liked to hack for fun and participated in a few planned cyber attacks. But she stopped, just naively, but she stopped hacking when a hacker friend got life in prison for domestic terrorism. So absolution is now a strong motivator for Mimi's actions. She has to ardently pursue justice throughout the series in order to receive forgiveness, but that forgiveness never comes. She needs to learn how to forgive herself. Mimi's curiosity, her drive to problem solve, and her strong sense of justice are her strengths and her weaknesses. They often get her into trouble. Rule 702 is like Scandal meets Alias meets Numbers with a female engineering lead. I want to positively influence people's opinions on women in engineering, not just young women, but everyone's opinion. And I think since Rule 702 is set in the current day, featuring realistic female engineers with fabulous careers working together to solve problems, we can do that. I want my daughters, future engineers, to walk into their workplace and find it half filled with women. Thank you.
Valerie, and then Wanda.
Thank you. That was really fun. My question for you is, if she's traveling all the time as an expert witness, how are we getting attached to her world, her brother on her couch, her friends? How do you imagine that
that's
happening?
a great question. So it's like Alias in that Mimi starts out in her home, but then she gets a case. So like Sydney Bristow getting a mission and going off on a mission. But she starts off in her home. The law firm calls her about a case. She goes and talks to them about it, so it gives the audience some detail about the case. She does some research on it. Maybe she goes to a maker lab to recreate the product. Maybe she goes to a lab to look at if there's a fault in the product and do an inspection. She'll involve her friends, like she relies on her friend Kate, who's a bioengineering professor at UCLA. She uses her labs. She might fly up to Sophia in San Francisco and use her Google-like campus. And so then, but as she's flying to testify, she realizes there's something not right here. And then she relies on her friends, her brothers, her feet on the ground in LA to figure out what's really going on so that when she actually gets to the case, like I said, it's not a courtroom drama, so a lot of these things settle outside the court. She'll have this evidence to say, wait, our client is not guilty because of, we found this reason. And then that's there's that stake involved in that she needs to figure this out before the case settles out of court or before she has to testify. And so they'll get to see her world, they'll get to see her bungalow. Her brother will be sitting on the couch watching TV and she's on her computer doing research and explaining things to him. And so that explains to the audience what science she's using because she's using layman's terms.
So do you imagine the main characters are geographically separated?
I want to have Kate in LA with her so they can go to coffee and you can see them surfing or you can see them doing activities together. But Sophia will be in San Francisco and I like Hannah in Austin because that's a high-tech area. And Mimi can go there for cases. But yeah, it's like Orphan Black, where the clone sisters are constantly video chatting and texting and IMing because they're not all in the same place. So you get that high-tech feel.
Great, thank you.
Let me straight to Wanda, please.
Yes, thank you. Great presentation. My question for you is about the rest of her life. I mean, you've made her super smart. She's got a double PhD. She's, brilliant and can walk away from one successful career to go to another. But, what other dimensions do we get to see about her? A family life, a side interests. I mean, one of the things that we want to think about when we, have these role models is this 360-degree perspective on them and who they are.
Great question. So, Mimi is super successful, and in her career, she knows what she's doing, right? She has she's like MacGyver, and that she's completely confident. She's not going to take a mission that she can't finish. But in her personal life, she's from kind of a broken family. She's from a family where her mom was a single mother and had to work all the time, so she had to raise her younger brother, and that's why they're so close. While the older brother was absent and not around, and the father had left early. So now she's, she wants to solve problems, and she wants to she feels like she should repair her broken family. And so she's trying to bring them back together, but then she realizes like her older brother and father might be people that she might not want to know. They might be shady characters, but because she likes to fix things, she goes ahead and tries to bring them together anyway. So there's a big family element. And then you do see the friends getting together because they're very active. Professional engineers, the ones that I know, are very active, and they mountain bike and they rock climb and they surf. And so you'll see them getting together for weekends, and maybe on that weekend they'll have a mystery that they need to solve together. Or they'll be, coming into town and visiting each other. So you'll get to see the friends and the activities she does with those friends.
Great, thank you, Beth.
All right.
Next up, we have Jayde Lovell. She's a STEM communicator for the New York Hall of Science, which is fabulous if you haven't visited, and a resident social science host for YouTube's TYT network. After earning a degree in neuroscience, she launched the YouTube channel, Did Someone Say Science? She has produced videos for organizations including NASA, Scientific American, and the American Institute of Physics. Her pitch is entitled SECs, which is short for Science and Engineering Clubs. Please welcome Jayde Lovell.
They say you should never do your pitch in the middle of a lineup, and there's 12 of us today, and I'm number 6. So, thanks, guys.
Not true.
Designing, making, and playing, that is the brand that engineering should have for 15-year-olds today. When I was 15 years old, I went to my high school career fair, and I went over to the engineering table. I'm not going to lie, I went over to the engineering table because true to form, it was like 100% guys over there. And I was like, this looks like a great place to spend the rest of my college years. But I went to the engineering table and I was like, engineering, what's that all about? And they were like, well, engineering is about physics. Do you like physics? And I was like, nope. And thus ended my engineering career. And now I get to work with young girls, and I went and asked them at YouTube, hey guys, what's stopping you guys from getting into engineering? One girl told me about how embarrassed she felt getting up on stage in front of her whole school to accept an award and how she'd stopped entering competitions after that. Another girl told me about how uncomfortable it was for her in her advanced math class because she was one of only 2 girls. And mostly they talked about this ridiculous dichotomy that we still have between the type of girls they wanted to be, like cool and popular, and what Julianne was saying, the type of girls that we stereotype as being the ones that are engineers. So how can we, I wish we could go up to girls and be like, hey, do you like designing stuff? Do you like making stuff? Yeah, that's engineering. You're already comfortable with it. You're already doing it. And I feel like if we could do that, we would have so many more young girls picking engineering. So how do we do that? How do we get them comfortable with this idea? Well, I'd like to introduce you to Emily. Ironically, she's not on the screen right now. Emily is a 15-year-old girl. She's pretty, she's popular. There she is, yes. She's pretty, she's popular. She is the daughter of the town mayor and a beauty queen, so she's kind of living a life of privilege. High school is pretty much awesome for Emily, until one day. She accidentally burns down the high school auditorium during the science and engineering competition. And she's faced with the ultimate teenager dilemma: expulsion or joining the high school science and engineering club, also known amongst her peers as the social suicide club. So this is a fish out of water story. It's like Ugly Betty, but in reverse. Now it's the cool popular kid that has to kind of make her way amongst these crazy science and engineering nerds. And we see Emily during the course of the first season, like kind of enjoying the SEC club a little bit. She is helping them with her unique perspective on their mission to become first at First. And I swear when I wrote this, I didn't know there was going to be people from First in the room today. Well done, guys. This is for you. So they're trying to become first at First. And as she gets more involved in helping the club, she starts spending less time at yoga with her friends and less time going on shopping trips. And she asks herself these same questions that many 15-year-old girls ask themselves. Will I still be cool if I show my enthusiasm for this robotics contest? Will Adam Jenkins in 5th period still like me if I beat him in math? Well, should I be the type of person that my parents and friends expect me to be? Or should I be the person that I want to be? I wanted this to be a high school drama with the positive and fun and bright elements of Glee, but instead of singing about their problems and the show tunes being the thing that gets everyone in each week, I wanted them to engineer solutions to their problems and have those badass elements of Burn Notice that gets people in each week. Emily and her friends do really cool stuff, like they start the high school bonfire with nothing but a battery and a gum wrapper. And yes, you can do that, YouTube it. Or I wanted also to have Emily doing the stuff that is engineering in her world. So when her high heel breaks, and for most girls this would be a crisis situation, when her high heel breaks, she uses her knowledge of materials engineering to fix it and build a better pair. Or when she's trying to take a selfie with her friends and her arm isn't quite long enough to fit everyone in the shot, this is a real problem and we've all faced it. She whips up a selfie stick out of nothing but a hairpin and a stick of gaffer tape. Like, who doesn't wish they could do that? So I imagined girls tuning in each week being like, I wonder what cool shit we're gonna learn how to engineer this week. They keep coming back. So that's what SEC is all about. To me, this is an opportunity to reach girls when they're right at that time in their life, when they're trying to figure out who they wanted to be and what they wanted to become, and showing them, like, we totally understand that you want to be cool and popular, and that's awesome, and you can be smart as well, and those two things aren't mutually exclusive. And that they can be creators and not just consumers. And that if they're comfortable creating stuff with a Swiss Army knife or a nail file, those are both equally valid ways of engineering their world. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayde. Any questions? America? Oh no, I totally regret the Ugly Betty reference.
Wonderful presentation. I enjoyed your comparison of it to Freaks and Geeks in your treatment. I love Freaks and Geeks. The problem with Freaks and Geeks is it was canceled after one season. So my question for you is, who is the audience for this show? And when you think about where you would tune in to watch this show, do you have an idea of where this show might thrive and where it would find its audience?
Yeah, I think the primary audience for this is teenage girls. This is who I wanted to reach. But like Glee, Glee was great because it had strong adult characters as well. So someone who's my age in their late 20s can enjoy it just as much as someone who's 15 years old can enjoy it. So in this, I developed strong teen characters. And even adults, we've all been teenagers. We remember what it's like. But there's also strong adult characters in there as well. Her parents and her mentors and the school principal are strong characters. So I imagine this being most popular amongst the kind of young adult and teen audience, but also that adults could enjoy it too. Yeah, great question.
Thank you. Great. Roberto?
One of the things I wrote down when you were speaking was to be smart or not to be. And is smart contrary to sexy? Are those in conflict? Is that the point of the show, to figure out what the middle line is? Is that the point?
Yeah.
Or not, in your mind?
To me, yeah. I've been that girl where I'm like, I want to be really pretty and I don't want people to see me as smart, but I also kind of like being smart and I'm enjoying this stuff. And I was surprised to hear that that's still happening in high school, that people sometimes feel ostracized for being smart, and that they're
What about the flip side?
Can they be both?
Yeah.
I think this is what I wanted this character to be both. To show teenage girls, like, you can be pretty, you can be cool, and you can be smart, and you can enjoy engineering as well. You're already enjoying it, you just don't realize.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Craig Motlong. He's the creative director at an advertising agency in Seattle. He grew up playing with Tinker Toys, Erector sets, and watching The $6 Million Man, like a lot of us. Fascinated with the way technology keeps pushing humanity forward, he is the father of twin preschoolers who are already learning to code. Good on you. His pitch is entitled Q Branch. Please welcome Craig Motlong.
So my favorite moment in any spy movie are the two gadget moments. And I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. In the first act, we get the spy who has to go to sort of the CIA supply closet and figure out what he needs for the mission. And a guy comes out and hands him a piece of kit that looks really cool, but he doesn't really think he's going to need it. And then later on in the movie, he needs it desperately, and it's a miracle. And we know it's coming every time. We absolutely know it's coming, and it still gets us every single time. And that's not even the interesting part. The interesting part is what kind of person looks at this and says, you know what this needs? A turbo laser. These are the kind of people we're talking about at Q Branch, the mad scientists, the people who think 3 steps ahead of the missions that people are going to go on and the things that they're going to need that they don't even know they need yet. This is a place, it's on the fringes of the CIA, where it's a skunk works. Anything goes. It's pushing technology forward into places it dared not go. It's finding those, it's field testing ideas, it's failing multiple times, it's finding things that work and putting them in the hands of the people that need them most. And this is a point in America's history where we need Q Branch more than ever. Because right now, we've had a technological advantage ever since technology has really been important. America, the United States, has had a technological advantage. But that's beginning to evaporate. And in the world of Q Branch, it's already gone. We're playing catch up. We're being outclassed by our rivals and our enemies. And we need to work hard to catch up. We need to pull people away from making a better car calling app and really put them to work on things that save lives, that protect us, that matter. And in charge of this team is a woman named Skylar Town. She hates the word genius, but she's really, really smart. And she runs a team that helps create these gadgets, these things that need to be invented, that need to be conceived of before they can be out in the field. She used to be, her parents, her family was foreign service, so she picked up a little bit here and there, moving around the world as a young girl. But then a tragedy struck, and her family was caught in an attack. And she could have saved them if she had one tool. And that failure has haunted her to this very day. It's why she's at Q Branch. It's what makes her who she is. If you're tied to a track and there's a train coming, she will find a way to get you off that track, or she will stop that train. That's the kind of woman we're talking about. Her team, she needs a team around her that is equally brilliant, creates a lot of friction, but helps her think outside the box, helps her create the things that she needs to create. And she's always a little bit at war with the people she's working with, but in the end, she's really trying to make them into her new family. Because every hero needs a tragic flaw. And I want to address Skylar's tragic flaw. Because I think in the world of, when we're talking about getting more women interested in science and engineering, there's very much an external thing that happens. There are messages that are sent, but I think those messages are sent from a very early age. And we internalize things very early on. In preschool, I can see my kids doing this. They're 3. They know things that I didn't teach them, but they're picking things up because they're in the ether. And this is where I get a little bit autobiographical. Skylar's worst enemy is herself. It's her ability to think, to outthink herself, to outwit herself, to push herself a little hard, to be too hard on herself. And that's something I really want to address. Because, first of all, it's figuratively at first, but it becomes quite literal later on. when the antagonist you're fighting against is the one you see in the mirror every day. So spies, saving spies with cool tech, that's Q Branch.
We'll go Madeline and then Lee.
What are your thoughts about balancing gadgetry with character development?
I lean towards the character development side myself. I really want the interesting characters to come out of it. The technology is really cool, and I think that's the reason to turn in, and that's the story engine. But it's the interactions between the team. I really hope to be motivated by, like, there's a theme running through each week that is personal that somehow magically becomes tech and helps them solve a problem that they're facing by themselves. Does that solve a problem?
Great, Lee.
Great pitch, by the way. When I was reading your treatment, I was a little confused about the sort of structure of the show in terms of there are agents out in the field, and Skylar and her team are in a lab, and so there's this, it's sort of like the action is sort of happening somewhere else, and they're trying to now offer solutions or suggestions about what to do with that. Is that how you see the structure of the show, or am I misunderstanding that?
I think it's two things. I think there's a lab element to this, but really I think we've got to get them in the field. How do you know what to invent unless you're out there? Only field agents know what they really need. That's how you get the pen. Oh, let turbo laser be really good here. Maybe I should do one. So I think there's that element of being in the field and sort of having a weird prototype that doesn't work and it fizzes out and it's not quite right. And then going back to the lab and finding out what really does work, what we really do need. And then finally figuring it out and getting it out there and perfecting it.
Great. Thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you.
Next up, we have now Murakami. She is a PhD candidate in the Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics at the University of Washington. She earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering in 2007 and a Master of Engineering degree in Aerospace Engineering in 2008, both from Cornell University. Oh. Her love for story, I would applaud that. I'm just gonna go right there. Her love for storytelling and good TV drama drew her to enter the Next MacGyver Competition. Her pitch is entitled The Mind. Please welcome now Murakami.
Thanks for the introduction. My name is Murakami, and yes, I am a rocket scientist. So I just want you all to take 3 seconds, think about your favorite scientist. What would you do if we could talk to your favorite scientist? In a near future, in a universe that's like ours, but slightly different, the minds of the great scientists and innovators are converted to data by the archivists and stored into the database called the hub. The archivists have existed since the dawn of mankind. They are not allowed to use the mind for their own benefit, nor to let the existence of the hub be known to the general public. Put into wrong hands with no ethical reservations, the technology to access the mind could have a devastating effect. When an unknown entity hacks into the hub and steals several minds, the archivists are forced to break their rule of secrecy and contact an engineer. Lucy. An engineer at AI Works is a specialist in artificial intelligence and biomechanics. She's a chief engineer on the artificial life experiment and one of the handful of engineers at the forefront of the Android technology. With help from one of the archivists, Lucy is able to give her Android model, Alex, the ability to download the mind. Alex is a unique android. She's the first android to have emotions equaling that of a human. She's able to temporarily obtain the minds of the scientists while still maintaining her own consciousness. As a new wave of crime emerges, likely related to the mind thefts, Lucy and Alex are enlisted to protect the secret of the archivists. and also the lives of the civilian populace. But the question remains, who stole the minds and for what purpose? Each episode of The Mind will be named after a famous scientist. The episodes will showcase the work of the well-known scientists as well as the work of the lesser-known, often female scientists. By having Alex access the minds of the scientists, each week the series can encompass a wide discipline of science and engineering. For example, the proposed pilot will feature a genetically modified strain of TB outbreak. Alex downloads the minds of Rosalind Franklin, who played a crucial role in the discovery of DNA structure, but was often overshadowed by her male colleagues, James Watson and Francis Crick. Lucy and Alex work together to develop an antidote, and the outbreak is contained. Lucy and Alex's relationship will evolve over the series to more than just an engineer and her robot. They will form a friendship. Because the goal of this series is to encourage young female audience to pursue STEM, especially engineering, Lucy's character is developed to be relatable and realistic. In short, she doesn't conform to the nerd stereotype. Her appearance will neither be a skinny supermodel nor a collection of unfortunate wardrobe choices. Yeah. I know how to dress. She's witty, loyal, compassionate, sometimes a bit stubborn, but overall well-rounded. Throughout the series, it is revealed that Lucy's academic and professional career track closely resembles that of a real-life engineer. She is not a prodigy with multiple PhDs. I'm still working on my first one. Lucy is someone who a middle school, high school, or even a college graduate can see themselves becoming like one day. This series was inspired by great TV shows, such as Fringe, Almost Human, Sleepy Hollow, Resilient Isles, Once Upon a Time, Revolution, The Blacklist, and of course, The X-Files. Thank you.
Valerie's hand shot up, and then Maya.
Two questions.
Sure.
Hopefully there's time for that. So my first question, when I really enjoy the world that you're creating. I think it's so great. I read my daughters. There's this book about this famous scientists and what the neighbors thought. It's a great series, and they have one on scientists. It's such a good way to
read that.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's so great that you're going to bring historical scientists to the screen for young people. My question is, you said that you can only take one of them out of the library at a time in your treatment. And I'm wondering, technology-wise, why would that be? But also, wouldn't it be fun to kind of have these scientists talk to each other? To me, that seemed like an interesting. I was just wondering what your thoughts are about that.
When I created that premise of the hub, I took the idea from like how you would check out a book from the library. And I thought having them access like multiple scientists might be a bit much, but if it works, I'm sure we can do something about it. So
okay, and then my second, I'll go quickly because I know I'm asking two
It's
questions. I'm very familiar with Rosalind Franklin, but I'm curious why you chose her for an issue with TB outbreak. Can you talk about that?
Well, so I picked her because for the pilot episode, I felt like I needed to pick someone that like the wider audience would know. So like I couldn't just pick like a really obscure scientist that everyone's gonna know who is. But also, and because so the villain actually, spoiler alert, steals the minds of Watson and Crick, but he didn't know that there was Rosalind Franklin, so he left her there. So that's why.
Is the issue in that episode you're using X-ray crystallography to look at the structure of tuberculosis? Or I guess I was confused by the science aspect of it. But maybe you'll have consultants for that? Or?
Yeah, so the Alex and like Lucy, they're gonna like work together. So Lucy's an engineer, so she can understand like how like, she knows a lot of to do like how to create an antidote and all that, but she doesn't have the specific knowledge, and that's where Rosalind Franklin comes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maya?
I just want to echo the point about double PhDs. Single PhDs are already not relatable, so double PhDs are really not. So go for one. But that's not my question. I love the complex plot. My question is actually specifically, does Alex embody the scientists as if they were a physical entity, or do you instead also intend to have someone acting out the scientist sort of brought in the flesh? How do we visualize that?
Yeah, I'm a bit flexible about that. So Alex can kind of take on the personality of the famous scientist, and like that would be fun. But also we can do like flashbacks of like the actual scientist like working in the lab or something, and then like it'll be.
I think there's something interestingly powerful about having this female android embody all of these past scientists in a female body. Just a thought.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much now.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Next up, we have Sam Ruano. He hails from Montreal, Canada, where he earned his BFA in film production at Concordia University, going on to become a videographer on Discovery Channel's Discovery Travels Exploring Horizons in the wilds of Latin America. He has written for such shows as CBC's Little Mosque on the Prairie, HBO Canada's Call Me Fitz, and showcases cult favorite Lost Girl. His pitch is entitled Enhanced. Please welcome Sam Ruano.
Thank you very much. I just want to say I know you're all very, very nervous, so don't worry, we're going to get through this together. First of all, I want to say thank you so much. This is such an amazing opportunity, and I'm very honored to be a part of it. And so, to begin with, if you don't mind, I've had pictures taken of me all morning, so I'm going to take a picture of all of you so that I can just capture the moment, if you don't mind. There you go. That's a keeper. Now, I know it's weird, but imagine for a second that I could take your picture without even using a camera. I just look at you and just blink my eyes and store your image for later. That sounds creepy, but because that's what Claire Parrish can do. You see, Claire is a member of the FBI's Operational Technologies Division, a specialized unit that investigates crimes committed by people with artificially enhanced abilities. But what sets Claire apart from the rest of her team is that Claire also happens to be enhanced. Enhanced is a techno-thriller procedural that, oh man, you threw me off. No. Enhanced is a techno-thriller procedural that envisions a future where criminals use technology to commit crimes like corporate espionage or identity theft or even terrorism, all set against a backdrop where fear and bigotry are aimed at people who identify as being transhuman. I mean, if you can imagine how many people today just don't get along because of race, color, creed, think about what it's going to be like 20 years in the future when kids are running around with brain implants and robotic arms. It's scary. So the question is, of course, how do you stop these criminals? How do you stop them when they've been altered to be physically, mentally superior? Well, of course, the answer is you fight science with science. Now, Claire is not only a very gifted engineer, she also happens to think like a detective. And each episode, Claire uses her vast knowledge of biomechanics and robotics, along with her training as an investigator to bring down these enhanced criminals. Of course, having prosthetic eyes also helps. Now, Claire's prosthetic eyes can't reproduce normal human vision, but what they can do is give her some pretty cool abilities like telescopic vision or heat vision, or basically she's got all the vision fields pretty much covered. But the thing is that she's pretty guarded about her eyes because, well, based on the impact that they've had on past relationships, it's pretty hard to trust somebody when you think they could be recording all of your moments, your deepest intimate moments. So relationships are difficult. Now, Claire's dad designed these eyes as a kid when she was blinded at an early age so that she wouldn't feel different. But of course, that's all she feels sometimes, is different. But she's, even though she's distant sometimes, it doesn't necessarily mean that she's socially awkward. It's just, well, she's like any of us. She's just trying to form relationships and figure out how she fits in this world. Of course, with her, she's always constantly straddling two worlds. So she doesn't know exactly where she fits in. Enhanced, I believe, hits all the marks of a great procedural. It's got smart criminals, cool forensics, heart-pumping action, and of course, plenty of drama. Now, each week, you get a case that has that rip-from-the-headlines feel. And I can't tell you how many times that I talk to someone or get into a conversation or read a headline about all of this great science and technology that is coming. It's coming. It's inevitable. So the wonderful thing about this show is that viewers get a chance to experience what the actual science is like behind the technology that we're exploring through Claire's eyes. Whether she is reverse engineering something in the lab, some existing cutting-edge sci-fi tech, or whether she's just building something new, whether she's rigging something up on the fly, whatever the case may be. I really honestly think that there's something special here. And if I'm making Claire out to be larger than life, well, then that's good. Because I think that our heroes should be larger than life. They should be iconic, which is why I really believe Claire is the next MacGyver. It's enhanced. It's not science fiction. It's science inevitability. Thank you.
Woo! America?
You hinted at sort of a social political ramification of this new technology. Can you talk a little bit more about the role of that kind of bigger global political struggle with the technology and how Claire fits into that?
Thank you very much for asking that, because the biggest inspiration for me for creating this show and coming up with this idea to begin with goes back to the 1960s, where I learned that the FBI had a special unit that just investigated crimes that dealt with the human rights movement and racial tension. And I thought, what would that look like in the future? And so, as I said before in the pitch, that Claire straddles two worlds because she, has these prosthetic eyes, and so she sees the world through the lens of a machine, but yet, obviously, she's human. And the best way that I can explain the bigotry and the fear that these people face on a daily basis, it's kind of like saying, well, the economy is so bad in the future, or at least it gets bad. I'm sorry, there's some bad news. There's some good news, too, for the future. But the economy gets pretty bad that people are losing jobs to other people who are taking advantage of the technology to improve themselves. And so it's creating a divide between those who have access to the technology and the resources and the means and those who don't.
Have you thought about how that's going to play into the first season in terms of like an arc and what role Claire plays in that kind of social political arc?
Absolutely, because the pilot episode deals with a bombing that is carried out by a group calling themselves transhuman activists. And they are basically striking a blow for people with enhanced abilities. And that's how Claire gets brought onto the team as sort of the special brains behind the operation. And throughout the arc of the first season, we get to see more of these attacks that are being carried out in the name of people who represent the enhanced or the disenfranchised groups that exist through body modifications or enhancements of that kind.
And actually, that's time. So thank you.
I took both.
No,
worries,
thank
no
you.
worries.
Thank you.
Makes you rethink sunglasses. I was looking up there. Next up, we have Miranda Sajdak. She's a film and TV writer, producer, director, currently living here in LA. She worked for producers of films like indie hits Drive to studio features like Final Destination. She co-wrote, produced, and directed the short Snapshot with Savannah Dooley, which premiered at Outfest in 2010. In 2012, she co-founded coverage service Script Chicks and a production company, Under the Stairs Entertainment. Her pitch is entitled Riveting. Please welcome Miranda Sajdak.
Hi, I'm Miranda Sajdak, and my Next MacGyver series is called Riveting. Riveting is a World War II era drama that follows a young woman named Junie Duncan, whose life is thrown into chaos when her fiancé is killed overseas. Devastated by her loss, she joins the Military Engineer Corps, learning and perfecting her trade to help with the war effort. Now, I was inspired to create Riveting, not only because my grandfather served in World War II, but also because I know how positive representations of women can inspire young girls to become involved in industries they may not otherwise know about. I myself decided to become involved in the entertainment industry after my mother took me to see the film A League of Their Own when I was 8 years old. Leaving the theater, I knew I wanted to create media to inspire other young girls the way that film inspired me. Now, Riveting is a bit different from A League of Their Own, as the tone merges the period style of Mad Men with the structure of The Good Wife, as each week Junie takes on a new technological problem while major character arcs develop throughout. Major characters in the show include Junie Duncan, 18 years old, whose goal as the series begins is to settle down and raise a family with her fiancé. Her goal ultimately changes when he turns up dead and she's ultimately forced to reassess her ultimate career. Her father, Pete, is an auto mechanic who taught her what she knows about technology. Her mother, Rose, a housewife who wishes her kids would avoid the war altogether. And her older brother, Cliff, is a pacifist who's drafted into the army and goes AWOL to avoid serving. Now, in the pilot, we meet Junie Duncan, 18 years old, ready to celebrate her last night in town with her fiancé before he ships off. They are headed to their small town prom, along with her best friend Barb and older brother Cliff to chaperone. On the way, Barb teases Junie. This might be the night she finally gets the engagement ring Matt's been promising. At prom, Cliff slips away, going AWOL. Meanwhile, Matt pulls Junie aside to give her a present. Not the engagement ring of her dreams, but a broken radio he wants her to fix while he's away. Months pass with Cliff missing and Matt overseas, and Junie sits down to fix that radio, only to discover the perfect engagement ring inside. She's excited, but her excitement turns to devastation when she learns Matt's been killed. She turns her anger into action and heads to Washington, D.C. to join up with the Corps. There, she's assigned to the assembly line, fixing airplane engines that have been overheating during flight. Her first day is a total mess. She is awkward and hopeless, and just as she's feeling at her worst, she's pulled aside and interrogated over her brother's whereabouts. She is ready to quit, but her best friend Barb convinces her to stay one more day. Next day goes better than the first, and she comes up with a way to fix the airplane engines. As the day comes to a close, another girl on the floor receives a telegram that her husband's been killed, and Junie decides to stay with the Corps, more determined than ever to fight the Nazi threat. Now, while it's a period piece, the themes in Riveting are universal, as Junie must constantly juggle family, career, and romance. In a future episode, her mother, Rose, breaks her leg and calls for Junie to come home, and she must decide whether to leave her factory life behind, just as she's developing a new propeller system and her relationship with another man at the factory is starting to take off. Melding real-life events with original drama, Riveting puts Junie in the center of a world hanging in the balance between good and evil. With her technical skills constantly put to the test in projects ranging from building the Pentagon to working on the Manhattan Project, she will ultimately be a major player in changing the course of history forever. And that is Riveting. Thank you.
Madeline?
What is the target, the audience demographics for this?
That's a great question. Junie is 18 years old when this series starts, so we're sort of looking at high school and up, essentially the kind of people who would be inspired by seeing somebody around the college age, kind of starting her first career and figuring out what that means, as well as adults who might be more inspired by something like a Mad Men.
My only thought is Bomb Girls, Manhattan Project, all of those. How are you going to make it relatable to inspire young girls to want to get into science?
That's also a great question. For me, when I saw A League of Their Own, that was clearly about older women in their 20s and 30s, not old women, but women in their 20s and 30s, first starting their careers. And what inspired me about that was the friendships, the empowerment of them working together to solve a common goal, and the fact that they were willing to do anything to achieve their dreams. And I think that that's something that's really thematic here, and that will definitely play through all the episodes. So it doesn't have to be about kids that age for it to inspire children that age. And for me, I mean, I was 8 when I saw A League of Their Own. So, you know, I definitely recognize that you can be younger and still be inspired by those stories.
Thank you. Yeah. Great. Maya had the same question, so I think, yeah, this is great. So Roberto?
Less of a question and more of an encouragement. I think this idea is great. I would highlight as much as I could going forward how the turning point in history was made by industrialization driven by women in this country.
Yeah.
And the idea that we saved America and the world from the Nazis, you can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
Like hit that right on the head, you know, just like that was the heroic thing. We turned this country into, we out-industrialized Nazi Germany. So don't be shy about that. Go for like the science of that. That's the engineering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that is such a cool idea. I think it's cool.
Oh, thank you.
Miranda, can I break the rules and ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are you thinking of incorporating the computer scientists, like the ENIAC programmers and the other women in other fields related to engineering in the show?
Absolutely. It's definitely something that will cross over because at the time, you know, whether you're talking about the Military Engineer Corps, which is really the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, but whether you're talking about that corps or the other groups working at the time, there's a lot of crossover because they have to work together to, you know, develop sort of, whether it's encryption systems that they're then going to put in the planes or whatever it may be, there will have to be crossover between those groups. So absolutely.
Great.
We did everything.
We did everything.
Yeah, we did.
You did everything.
Heard that?
Yeah.
Every live stream, everything. Yeah.
Everything.
Miranda, thank you so much.
Thank
That was
you.
great. All right, everybody, two more. How's everybody feeling? We're going to take a little, yeah? All right. Everybody adjust, yeah. Stretch. It's like the 7th inning stretch, right? League of Their Own, 7th inning stretch. Yeah, do the wave. Oh, that's good. All right, audience, start on this side. We're going to wave. And this way. There we go. Yes. Woo. Peanuts, anybody? Pretzels, hot dogs? Anybody? Okay. Excellent. All right, everybody's feeling loose. All right, 2 more. We have Daniel Wright. He's an aspiring writer living in Brisbane, Australia. Thank you for joining us. He graduated from the University of Queensland with degrees in biomedical science and psychology and is currently working as a software tester. Daniel writes in many different genres with a tendency toward action, thriller, science fiction, and urban fantasy. His story topics range from time-traveling thieves to magical druids in Central Park to revolutions played out through social media. His pitch is entitled Isabel.exe. Please welcome Daniel Wright.
Thanks very much. We're almost there. 2 people to go.
We're with you.
So I want you to imagine something for me. Imagine you're walking down the street in your hometown and you see something lying by the side of the road. It looks like a person, like a normal young woman, but it can't be. It's broken and you can see wires and machinery inside it. You look at it and its eyes open and it looks at you. And you can see it. She's in pain and she needs help. So how could you help her? I want you to picture this taking place today, to you in 2015. There's no Starship Enterprise around to beam her up to, no Tony Stark to build her a new body. So how could you help this robot girl? Now I want you to imagine that instead of finding that robot girl, you are that robot girl. And that just this morning, you didn't know you were a robot. Welcome to Isabel's life. Isabel.exe is the story of Isabel Allen, a seemingly ordinary college freshman who's secretly a robot. So secretly, in fact, that even she doesn't know when the story starts. To make matters worse, she's not the best quality and her parts are slowly failing. So what does a strong, determined young college student do when she finds out that she's a robot and she's breaking down and possibly dying? She changes majors. She starts studying engineering so she can figure out how to fix herself and stay alive while she searches for who created her and why. Isabel's story is at its core about the power of science and engineering in our world around us today. Her story takes place today in our world. And her designers haven't exactly gone and made her design open source. So she and her friends have to use the same tools and techniques being used by modern day people working in STEM fields to try and fix her. Through Isabel, we get to explore both cutting-edge science and fantastical science fiction technologies. Isabel's robotic abilities, combined with the know-how and tricks of STEM, allow them to solve any problem. Did you lose your robot arm? 3D print a new one. Is that robot arm not strong enough for you to break into a building? Reinforce it with carbon nanotubes and advanced motors. Do you need to get something off the bottom of the ocean? Isabel doesn't need to breathe, but you have to reinforce her enough that she can survive the pressure. Do you need to get something out of a furnace? Maybe we can liquid cool Isabel. The kinds of things Isabel and her friends do are heavily based on what real researchers and engineers are doing today and will be doing in the next few years. Isabel's adventures allow us to channel that same spark of, I can do that made MacGyver so appealing, but in a new way. Her challenges are a peek into the practical side of science and engineering, and also a little trip into its future. Through her, we can explore interesting topics in STEM. We can test the limits of transhumanism, investigate how you might design the ideal robotic limb, and dive into an artificial intelligence. While all that's going on, Isabel has to deal with the Consortium, a secretive group of researchers who treat ethics and oversight like they're optional annoyances. They've got experiments out there ranging from the good-hearted to the bizarre to the downright wrong, and Isabel and her friends will get wrapped up in their machinations as they might know something about where Isabel came from. So Isabel and her friends will need to infiltrate, influence, and disrupt their experiments while hiding Isabel's robotic nature from people who might want to experiment on her. Through the Consortium, we can get a look at the darker side of STEM and have a look at how inspiration without concern and study without care can be incredibly dangerous. Their work shows us just how bad research can go without proper guidance, into dark places like the strange psychology experiments of old, like the Stanford prison experiment, but gone completely off the rails. Through them, not only do we get cool villains, we can show that scientific know-how isn't just what you need. It needs to be tempered by emotion and ethics, and needs the right spirit and the right vision behind it. The contrast between what Isabel does and what the Consortium does can help us engender that spirit for the betterment of humanity that makes good science. Finally, Isabel's story is about the kind of struggles all young people go through, but filtered through a bit of a robotic lens. It's about struggling to fit in, figuring out your way in the world, figuring out who you are. But for Isabel, it's also about figuring out what she is, how she works, why was she created. So combining these two gives us a way to look at the same struggles that all of us go through when we're young people, but through a new synthetic angle. Overall, Isabel's story is one of fantastical things in our modern world. It's about the power of science and engineering to overcome any challenge, even ones that might be 10 or 20 or 30 years ahead of our understanding, like Isabel herself. It's about how even the most advanced creations can sometimes need help from those around them. It's about how good science it's about how good science is just as powerful as bad science can be devastating. It's about how being human isn't necessarily being Homo sapien. And most of all, it's about how, with a little bit of study and research, anything is possible. Thank you.
I don't think you'll be surprised to hear me make the comparison to Orphan Black. I'm expecting you expected that. What makes Isabel, my question is, who is she? Who is she before she finds out she's a robot? Who does she think she is?
Before she finds out she's a robot, she thinks she's an ordinary college girl, fresh out of high school, trying to figure out her way in the world. She's energetic, she's enthusiastic, she wants to try new things and figure out who is she going to be in the world.
Does she have a family? Does she have a childhood?
She thinks she does. In reality, Isabel has only really been activated for about a month. She's gone to college, and before that, she was in the lab. But in her mind, she's lived her entire life.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem.
Maya?
Actually, following up on that, so can you tell us a little bit more about who are the key people in that life? I mean, who were the parents who were not parents 2 months ago? So,
Isabel's parents, she's still they don't actually exist, which is a problem for her. They're based on the designers that created her originally, but the people that they aren't real, which is devastating for her to find out, of course. But there are some parallels and overlaps between some of the key designers and the people who were playing her parents.
We have a lot of questions on this one. So Tracy?
Okay, I just want to follow up. So it sounds a little bit like Isabel's not unlike the replicants from Blade Runner, doesn't know exactly who she is, kind of the Rachel character. She's unique in that way. Talk about the consortium a little bit. Is she part of like this corporation or the consortium, as you call it, master plan to something? Is that a series arc or maybe something you see over the course of the first season reveal as she discovers who she is and why she is?
Over the course of the series, there will be one of the major questions is, why was Isabel created? What is her purpose? She's clearly good enough to fit in with humans. She was passing, at least before her accident. So what is her goal? Is she supposed to be a spy? Is she a soldier? Is she a slave? That's an ongoing question that we're going to be constantly trying to pursue.
Do you have an idea where you want to go with that?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
All right, Daniel, that's all the time.
Cool.
Thank you so
Thank you very much.
And last but certainly not least, we end on a team. What do you get when you gather 4 imaginative women in a room to create a show? Well, it's not really your average group. These working women pack a powerful punch. Meshing together their bioengineering, computer science, electrical engineering, and industrial engineering and operation research backgrounds. Jinhua, Rachel, Judy, and Penny hope to inspire young women to pursue engineering. And just so you know, Judy is going to be representing the whole group, but they will all be coming up for Q&A, so you can ask the whole team questions. And their pitch is entitled At Gnosis. Representing the group, please welcome Judy Wu.
Hi, so you can almost relax. I am the last one. I don't think anyone's lying to you. So gnosis is the Greek word for knowledge, and it's a concept created by a team about a team. It's going to be a crime series that follows the turbulent and angst-filled lives of 5 young adults who are in a college much like Berkeley. Sorry guys, NorCal represent. So they'll be solving crimes while also trying to figure out how to grow up and what do they want to be. It's going to be set in a near future, tech-driven world, and they're only pulled into crime solving when a crime wave hits their town and becomes personal. For instance, in a pilot episode, one of the characters gets kidnapped. It is only through their unique engineering skills and self-motivation that they can do what others cannot do. Initially, they're disregarded by law enforcement, well, with the exception of one lovesick rookie cop. And they have to prove their worth. They will discover that a mysterious and vengeful individual is recruiting and growing a criminal network, and they have to unravel the mystery behind this criminal mastermind. We will discover that this antagonist actually has a complicated history of loss and regret that leads to some really human and emotional reasons for revenge. Due to one of the main characters being in juvenile detention, our characters have to communicate and share information via social media. In addition, we want to have some real social media personas that will interact, teach, and engage the viewers via thought-provoking questions, stimulating discussions, and problem-solving challenges. We want this show to not only be entertaining, but educational. And so each episode, there'll be an engineering problem followed by a social media blast that will explain how it's solved and why it works. We in this room all know how pervasive and influential media is. We want to harness that power to influence and empower the next generation of women and shape the way that they learn. We also know that teenagers value being able to relate. And so all 5 of our characters are going to be familiar to anyone who's ever been through school. They're from different crowds, and it's only when one of the characters gets kidnapped and they have to come together using their various engineering skills, such as natural language processing, combustion chemistry, etc., that they're able to solve the crime. And this is when they come together. However, they're more than their stereotypes. For example, Minerva. She's pretty, she's popular, she's charismatic. So you'd expect her to be pursuing a career in fashion, law and politics, or acting. But our Minerva has mechanical engineering chops that she's going to use in a very creative and empowering way. Now, to contrast with Minerva, we have Freddie. She's a very troubled young woman. She's had a really rough life, grew up on the wrong side of tracks, and ends up in juvenile detention. You expect her to be thinking about how to survive and not about education. But Freddie is actually going to find a passion and a purpose in life through computer science. Now, so we have these characters who are not your atypical characters. What about a typical engineering character? This is Emily. Emily is what we think of as stereotype. She's shy, she's nerdy, she's a little quirky. But what happens to Emily when she's pushed her limits by such two different characters as Minerva and Freddie and having to work with them? This will not just be a crime series, but a story of how 5 such different people can first need and respect each other, work together, and ultimately form some really strong bonds. We seek to attract today's youth, initially through the story and compelling characters, but also counter many engineering stereotypes. These characters are not loners, socially awkward, quirky prodigies, but real, diverse, empathetic, faulty, yet strong individuals. As a team, they're able to tackle some real challenges. Lastly, we want to inspire girls who feel intimidated and alienated by today's world that there can exist a creative and collaborative engineer. We want to show them, ignite passion in them about all the different engineering possibilities by featuring them in our show. Thank you. And now we'll have Penny and Rachel join me on stage for Q&A.
I have a 2-part question. One is there one main character in the group of 5, or do they all have equal weight? And then the second question is about the role of having a guy in the group of 5 and how you see that dynamic playing out.
What's wrong with that?
No, nothing wrong with it. I'm just asking.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, so when we were playing around with the characters, we actually didn't want to make just one person main character because as an engineer, we're all engineers in this group, and every day we have to learn to work together. And so the whole purpose of having 5 different people, we really wanted to focus on 3 of the main ones, so the ones that Judy had explained, so Emily, Minerva, and Freddie, to showcase how different people from different backgrounds have to learn to work together. And then for the guy, we didn't want to misrepresent men or hate on men, and it'll be an interesting dynamic because the last 2 characters are fraternal twins, and there's they've encountered some family pressure as well. So and that's pretty pervasive in a lot of people these days, young adults growing up. So we wanted to put that dynamic in as well.
Any other questions? Judges? No? All right, that's it.
Yeah, I got one then.
Oh, Roberto.
Hold on, let me refer to my notes. Because I had this question, but I thought I'd run out of time. How do you show empowerment of women without victimhood first? And maybe you have to do both. Like, do you show them down first and then you rise up, or you come in strong? And I don't have an opinion. I'm just curious about your opinion.
Yeah, so I think that's the interesting thing about having 5 characters. We have some characters that...
You can do both.
You can do both. We have characters who are empowering, and that's real life. Some people just, they're empowered, and they're really great role models because they're strong and they're confident. And on the other hand, you also have people who have to get down first. And engineering helps them crawl out of that and be empowered and be strong.
And that's why we have all our different characters. We have, you know, Minerva, who starts off as someone like, you think she has it all, but in reality she's battling with like, you know, her internal struggle.
So on
with,
different levels.
Yeah, different levels, and, you know, you'll get to see more development with Freddie and Emily as well.
Great. Congrats, that's a great pitch.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies. So thank you to all the finalists and the judges. We got through all 12. Yes. We're going to take a short break before the panel portion of our program. We're actually running a little early, so are we still going to start at 4:40? I just want to check. Yep. All right. So we're actually going to take closer to a 30-minute break because we're running a little early. So the program will resume for all of those on the live stream as well at 4:40 p.m. So everyone in the room, if you'd like to step out in the lobby, there's some refreshments and light snacks. And we'll see you back here at 4:40 p.m. Thank you all. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. We're back. I'm going to start doing an education clapping exercise. There we go. That's right. Peace. I see people who are in the Girl Scouts. I love you all. Welcome back. Welcome back for part 2 of our awesome afternoon. Is everybody having a good time? Right on. Who learned something new about science, technology, engineering, and math that they did not know today? Hands? There you go. Right on. So for those who are joining sort of midstream, I'm Julianne Cramet. I'm the program manager for computer science education in media at Google. And my team's efforts are all around how do we shift perceptions around computer science and engineering and media to tell a different narrative, a more inclusive one for girls and diverse boys. Because as our friends at Gina Davis say, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So let's give everyone the opportunity to see themselves in every profession. And with that, I have a very exciting introduction of a good friend of mine, Natoki Ford. And she will be joining us to say a little message from the White House, which I think is kind of cool. And she works specifically at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. And after her, we will be having our awesome panel, which you'll hear about in just a second. And then the judges will come back with their decisions. So with that, I welcome the fabulous and the amazing Natoki Ford.
Wow, I think that's the first time I've been called fabulous in an introduction before. So thank you, Julianne. So I just wanted to begin by saying, wow, I was just so impressed and blown away by the breadth and the depth of creativity that was displayed with the stories that were pitched today. And I'm just like, the judges really had their work cut out for them in only having or being able to choose 5. So my goodness. But it's a real pleasure to be here today to bring you greetings on behalf of the White House and also to provide a little introduction to a video that was prepared just for you all today by none other than our U.S. Chief Technology Officer, Megan Smith. And so one of the things I wanted to just add is that I love that this competition embodies 2 major themes, inspiration and inclusion. And both of these are so very important to the work that this administration is doing in the realm of STEM education. And so it's a really exciting time for us because there's really this movement that's happening where more and more people are looking to leverage the tremendous power of storytelling to help us address this really persistent challenge with diversity in STEM fields. And so it just really is apparent that more people are recognizing that it's not just about proficiency. We really have to do more to capture the imagination of our young people and to help them really begin to see themselves as future innovators and to have them really wholeheartedly believe that everyone, that's young women, as people of color, people with disabilities, we all have the ability to help develop solutions to some of our most pressing challenges. And so to all of the finalists, I don't know where you are dispersed in the room, thank you for lending your creativity to this competition, which is a part of a larger cause to help us focus on having a STEM workforce that looks more like the U.S. population. And so I want to encourage all the finalists as well that regardless of what happens today with the deliberations of the judges, keep going. You all had great stories, and so I hope you all keep going with your ideas and keep working at them because I think the world needs to hear these types of stories. And so with that, without further ado, please enjoy this video by our U.S. CTO, Megan Smith.
Hello, Paley Center. I'm Megan Smith. I'm the U.S. Chief Technology Officer, and I'm honored to be able to congratulate the incredible 12 finalists on the Next MacGyver Competition and everyone who's been involved with the competition and who entered the competition. You know, I love about MacGyver, you know, like these are some, you know, handful of gadgets, speakers, whatever he had available to him. He was just such a cool character because he had to solve extraordinary problems, and he just got it done with whatever was at hand and whoever was around. He included them. You know, I have a board for my cell phone, Arduino things here, and did that. I'm excited for what you guys are up to, is because one of the issues that we've had in the past in media is that we haven't included everyone as solution makers at the level that they really are and always have been in the world. So seeing us expand to Women MacGyver and think about different kinds of inclusivity is really key, and I'm looking forward to your amazing stories. You know, next week we'll host the White House, first ever White House demo Demo Day. We're inviting extraordinary entrepreneurs from across the United States to join us here and show us the great companies that they've made on all kinds of topics. They're from all over the country, all ages, men and women, different backgrounds, and we're looking forward to hosting them. And, you know, the stories that you tell, you know, are so important for inspiring everybody to really be the best that they can be and really bring the things that they can bring to the world and solving some of our greatest challenges in the spirit of MacGyver and this Next MacGyver are so critical. So congratulations to everybody. And on behalf of the President and all of us here in the White House, thank you for your extraordinary work, and we can't wait to watch.
Thank you so much, Natoki and Megan Smith. And by the way, Megan is also a close and personal friend of mine, and I will say everything you see on this screen is 100% who she is in real life. And I think we could be no more grateful to have her in that position. So thanks to her and her entire staff for putting that video together, because it's no small feat. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator for this afternoon's conversation. A woman who, during her tenure as commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment in New York City from 2003 to 2013, oversaw some of the strongest film and television growth in the city's history. She is currently a principal in media and technology for Bloomberg Associates. Please join me in welcoming Catherine Oliver.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And the finalists, so we're just absolutely spectacular today. And to think, I think there were something like 2,000 entries and 12 finalists, and they were just all so thoughtful and inspiring in their presentation. So congratulations to all of you, and good luck to the judges in picking winners. It's no easy task indeed. But clearly we've learned that smart is the new cool. And we've got an incredible group of very smart and accomplished women who are on our panel today, and I want to welcome them. Panelists, why don't you all come out and join me on the stage, and then we'll do the introductions from there. So we're greeted, okay, I'm going to join them. Okay. It is with great pleasure I have Anne Blanchard sitting right next to me, who is a senior packaging agent at CAA, an agent who deals with clients, including showrunners of Daredevil and Dexter. She worked on packaging for NCIS New Orleans and worked on some strong female shows as well, Grace and Frankie and Nashville. We have Marcy Cooperstein, VP of Development and Program at ABC Family, handling original series development for ABC Family, Successes, Stitchers, Chasing Life, Switched at Birth, just launched a reality series, Start Up You, which we're going to hear more about. Danielle Feinberg, Director of Photography, Lighting at Pixar Animation Studios, Director of Lighting on the Academy Award-winning WALL-E and Brave. She's been with Pixar for 18 years. She started there when she was 2. Worked on Finding Nemo, A Bug's Life, and much, much more. And then we have Ann Merchant, Science and Entertainment Exchange, launched the Science and Entertainment Exchange, which seeks to connect entertainment industry professionals with top scientists and engineers to help ensure accurate representation. So welcome, ladies, and we've learned that not only is smart the new cool, but smart is lucrative. There was an article in today's New York Times saying that there's an incredible trend that as the tech boom continues, that even 20-somethings are going back to school, learning coding, and pursuing careers because that's where the jobs are and where the high-paying jobs are. So there was this whole narrative of aspiring actors and actresses who might have been working as waiters and waitresses who are now learning coding and getting jobs as programmers at $100,000 a year. So it's not only the young people that we want to inspire, but it seems that even people are rethinking, you know, I can't believe mid-career is 20 years old, but that's what the article said. But it's really incredible to see the trend. And you know, I was in preparing for today's presentation, you know, I was reflecting on when I was younger and growing up. I grew up in New York. I wanted to be a journalist, and I was thinking about the television shows shows and the characters that influenced me. And I remember that girl, Marlo Thomas, and Mary Tyler Moore, and then of course later Murphy Brown, as really inspirational characters, strong female characters, and of course they've developed from there. But I'd love to have some reflections from you. Anne, what when you were growing up, was there a television show or a character that really influenced you?
Well, I appreciate that. First of all, it's just so great to be here. I love any topic that provokes me, and I don't have a strong scientific bent, but I have a strong literary bent. And I grew up in a household without a television. So I grew up in a very low-tech household with a very big classics library, and I really read the classics. But when you think about it, Thomas Hardy, the Brontes, Jane Austen, George Eliot forward, all of them had outsized female characters that could be influencing the girls of today. Because one of the things I noticed is that people come in to pitch a scientist, but really a scientist is a human being. So you have to pitch the underneath of a character and then give them a job. So I would say but for me, I was very much inspired by literature, and then later got a television and forced my parents to get a television, and the rest is history.
And Marcy, you're looking at a lot of very popular television shows at ABC. What inspired you growing up, and where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, and also just want to take the moment to thank you also for having me here and congratulate all of the finalists. It was a wonderful experience to behold. I grew up in New Jersey, and unlike Anne, I had a very TV-focused home. Too TV-focused maybe, but that's okay because it got me here. And I think for me, really early influences were women journalists, honestly. Women journalists, Barbara Walters, Oprah Winfrey, these women that would come on to the screen for me and I would watch and learn and really be inspired by. And so I think for my path in television, wanting to continue to portray smart women, informative women, inspiring women, especially to the young adult and 20-something audience has really gone very much on track.
Danielle, are there animated characters that inspired you, or do you have real life characters as well?
Probably not as much animated characters. I think when I was growing up, a lot of what inspired me were more like science fiction TV shows and movies, because I think I was really gravitated towards the science and technology. And the more female role models that inspired me were historical characters like Amelia Earhart, or happening right then, Billie Jean King, who's people who are just willing to take on sort of uncharted territory, literally in Amelia Earhart's case, I guess. But and so I think for me it was a mix of TV and movies, and then these characters in real life.
And Anne, how about you?
Well, I first wanted to clarify that the Science and Entertainment Exchange is actually a program of the National Academy of Sciences, the parent institution to the National Academy of Engineering and the National Academy of Medicine. So for me, and I'm not a scientist, I've worked there for 25 years. I started when I was 2. And I've worked there for a very long time, and I'm not a scientist. Now, when I was a kid, I absolutely loved Star Trek. That was a long time ago, so it was in prime time. I had a phaser, constantly set on stun. Although when my sister was around, I think I would ratchet it up a little bit. I loved Star Trek, but what was interesting, and I think one of the things that the Academy recognizes, is that I was a kid who did have an interest in science, and some of those kinds of television shows really did inspire me. And I went to a university that was very science focused, but I was one of those people who sat in a big 101 class and was made to feel very disenchanted with science. I also took a material science class, and I remember going and asking something, saying to the TA, I don't think I understand this. And the TA looked at me and said, well, you probably need to drop this class. And I said, well, I'm taking it pass-fail. You need to drop this class. And that's unfortunately, you can be inspired by television, which is of course what we all hope to do, but you can also be turned away from that, it's sad to say, when you get into an environment where you can be taught something really useful.
We're really lucky today that there are a lot of very strong roles for women, predominantly in TV series. It might be a little bit more challenging on the film side, but you think of the past few years of successful series, but we see women as doctors or lawyers or politicians. That seems to be the last couple of seasons, a lot of shows on that. Why have we not seen more women scientists? I mean, there have been a few, and there have been series like NCIS or CSI or Big Bang, gang, but the female characters there are, secondary. And why haven't we seen more, leading characters in science and engineering? And I like to use the phrase STEAM versus STEM. Science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. That's something very passionate to us at Bloomberg. And there's been a lot of talk about attracting young girls through the arts and making them feel confident about pursuing studies in science and technology. But why don't we start with you, Marcy? Why haven't we seen more of these characters in science and technology?
That's an interesting question. I think really, for me personally, I get really excited when those stories come in the door. It's something that we love to encourage. We have a show, Stitchers, which really delves into math, science. We have engineering women. When that script came to us and we read it, it was exciting. It was new. It was a story that we hadn't seen before. So I think it's about just keeping the doors open and encouraging those stories to come in. I mean, basically, if a writer has a passion and has a vision, we are open to hearing it. So I think it's just encouraging more coming through the doors, if you will.
Do you think, Anne, do you think that women have been discouraged by not seeing these role models at all?
Well, I think they're certainly encouraged by it. And I do think when you ask the question, why aren't they portrayed more often? I mean, one of the things that we often see at the Exchange is that, writers are taught to write what they know. And we often find that they don't necessarily know a lot of scientists. They don't know a lot of engineers. They don't know, it's not necessarily that they don't know women engineers, they don't know any engineers. So one of the things that we try very specifically to do is to put women scientists and engineers in front of the content creators so that they can begin to know them. Sometimes those stereotypes are built on stereotypes that are built on stereotypes. I don't know where they necessarily started, but it's these, you notice that a lot of the pitches we heard today are from engineers. They know engineers. And so, it's, I think, about creating a community where people can interact.
And what about the role of the writers? I mean, is it important, as you said, to get these influencers or tastemakers into the writers' room to talk about the topics? But is it also that we need more women writers in the writers' room as well to develop these characters?
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know that it's just women writers. I think conferences like this are very valuable. I'm sitting here going, why couldn't Amy Schumer in Trainwreck have been a coder? Mm-hmm. There's every reason that would have been just as funny. In fact, you could argue even funnier. And I just think that's interesting to think about. So I think panels like this are very important. And I think to some extent, the writers who come in have been very right-brain focused much of their developmental careers. Many of them have started as playwrights at 8, 9, and 10 and done their first one-woman show when they're 13, 14, 15. So as they're gearing their careers towards English, social science, history, I think what's important is we've dropped all the mandatory math and science requirements past a certain age in most developmental schools. Might be something to look at. Just to balance that perspective.
But in the evolution of creating a show or developing the characters, at what point do we need to plant those seeds to develop these characters? At the
very beginning of the process.
Possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you're developing the show or developing the pilot for the show, and then consistently seeing it through.
Absolutely.
I mean, what happens in the writers' room typically, Marcy?
Starting at the pilot stage and where I sit, we hear pitches all day long. Writers come in, we send material, the agents send material, we read material. So I think we at our network and myself as an executive are always pushing to have our stories be as relevant, contemporary as possible and really reflect what our audience is interested in. And so this topic, just to speak for the now, is so hot, so interesting. So to your point, if we're developing a script and there's an opportunity to take a character who maybe we've seen a character similar do that job, or it's similar to something that's on air, we've seen that story before, we will talk and broach the topic of like, hey, I just read this article, you know, or about, you know, these new scientists, or this is what I saw in the news, or here's what our audience is saying to us. So there's definitely opportunity. I agree with everyone kind of nodding along that it starts earlier. And I think, you know, the way we encourage, and I think a lot of writers are open to kind of reflecting, at least for our network, really what is in the zeitgeist for young people. So it's kind of open conversation and encouragement.
And some shows will have technical advisors. I mean, if something is very particular, if it's about a crime drama, or maybe it's about, you know, an emergency room, they actually hire doctors and lawyers to be in there. So do you think that we need to get more of that?
Absolutely. And for example, I don't know if Julianne's still here, but there she is, the wonderful Julianne Cromit from Google, but we've worked a lot. And so it's resources like Google and you know, other big companies that we have conference calls with our writers for our show Stitchers, like what can we share about the engineering world? What questions do you have? So absolutely, having those resources and having those technical advisors are crucial.
And that's essentially what the exchange does. I mean, we always say it's 1-800-I-NEED-A-SCIENTIST. And Rick Lovett, who's in the audience, always corrects me and says, no, it's an actual number now. It's 844-NEED-SCI. So that's exactly what we do. And those typically, they are not paid consultants, but we've done, you know, 1,300 consults since the program launched in 2008. So that's a lot of people that are interested in science and engineering and how to weave that into the narratives that they are working on.
When we think of some of the, you know, the leading characters in tech, I mean, on NCIS, there's the Paulie Parrott character. I guess it's Abby, very quirky. And then there's the Penny character on Big Bang Theory. And I'm just wondering, you know, are there stereotypes of these techie, geeky, gothy kind of characters? And is that hard to sell in Hollywood because they have expectations of another, you know, look and feel for a show?
Well, I actually think there's a couple of things. I think we should celebrate the fact that the CSIs, the Bones, the Homelands, this is all a form of women doing science. So I also think it would be good for us to say, here's the great characters, the Grey's Anatomies. I mean, I'm sure if Shonda were here, she'd be saying, wow, I've had female scientists on my show, the #1 show in America, for 10 years. So I think the other thing we could do is celebrate what's there and then build from it. And I actually think, I think we're at a point where the more original, the more unusual the characterization, the more specific, though, to the research done by the writer, so that it combines both the writer's DNA and also the hopefully effective research they've done. Really, the floodgates are open. I mean, I always laugh with my motion picture colleagues because I'm like, it took me 20 years to be in the cool department. But TV is now officially kind of the cool department. And I think anything goes. We're selling to 42 networks now. Scripted programming.
I think there was something like 400 shows launching this summer on television, and I totally echo what Anne is saying. The more unique, the more specific, the better, because there's just more pressure, excitement, stakes to really break out. So those stories that haven't been told and the specific characters that you haven't seen are more appealing than ever.
Well, science is an incredible, I mean, think of the treasure trove that it offers for story, for character, for the things that people think are cool. Let me tell you, you put writers in a room with scientists and engineers, and they can knock it out of the park with what is really cool. So that's why it's a really great experience to put them together.
I'm sure all of us have had experiences mentoring young girls and trying to find the words of wisdom to share, to inspire them. Danielle, you've spent a lot of time mentoring, and you've talked publicly about the inspiration of your computer science teacher. So how important is it, and what are you hearing from the girls that you're mentoring about the importance of these characters, either in an animated production or in an episodic series, that they can see something that they can aspire to?
I think one of the things that's become really clear in going out and talking to girls all over is that there are a lot of misconceptions about what a computer scientist does, or if you're a scientist, what you do, what an engineer does. And so I think having these characters on screen to dispel those myths and to give them something else that they can see is a huge, huge thing. And a lot of what seems to resonate with the groups I talk to is when they discover that you can take code or engineering of some kind and combine it with whatever you love. It can be anything now, and you combine that into a career. And so if you study code or engineering, you, instead of shutting down what your possibilities are in life, you're actually opening up a very broad range of things. And so I think that getting these characters on screen so that girls can see that it's really possible and they can do all of these different things is really kind of the secret sauce to getting more girls involved.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that it's harder to weave together a solid engineering storyline for a female character than a male?
I mean, we have certainly not found that to be true when we have put together the creative community with the science and engineering community. In fact, I think sometimes, we've talked about the fact that when it's new or interesting and different, I think that because you haven't seen a lot of these female engineer characters, I think that's something that actually attracts the audience, that this is something that makes them stop and say, that's kind of cool. And I think in particular, you look at somebody like Dana Scully from the X-Files, that was a role where this was a woman in an atypical kind of situation, and people loved that character. You can talk about the fact that the X-Files as a science show was not particularly accurate, but you can also look at the fact that Dana Scully was incredibly inspirational to a lot of women that would come into a lab or into a science class and say, I want to be like Dana Scully, because she was logical, she was cool, she was collected, and she followed the evidence. And I think that seeing a woman in that, I think that it opens up a lot of options and opportunities actually for a writer.
And in the pitches earlier, that came up a few times where they were talking about the development of the female character, and the judges had queried a few times, well, what's the story behind the story? What's the story behind this person? She's a scientist, she's doing it all, but does she have another life? Mm-hmm. And how important it is to develop that. Marcy, what have you found in terms of developing the storylines for the female characters versus men? And you've got this new startup, You.
Yeah.
Perhaps there's an illustration there that you can give us.
Well, it's interesting because I am fortunate enough to do scripted and unscripted programming. So Startup U is our new show premiering this summer that is looking at young entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley. And we have 30 students, 10 of which we follow, working to get investment from a huge venture capitalist, Tim Draper, up in Silicon Valley for their businesses, which are apps and coding and tech, and they're trying to change the world with their new tech invention. So, it's funny in terms of making I don't think there's any world where it's harder to write a female, or follow unscripted wise a female versus a male. It's about interesting, unique characters with compelling stories. And I think I'm fortunate enough to work at a place where we're encouraging young women, young female characters, and having them in the forefront of our shows. So it's great to kind of delve into it unscripted wise too, because our audience, young adults, are watching scripted shows, reality shows, and it's great to kind of be able to show really that it's not even just limited to scripted shows, that we can encourage math, science, engineering. We specifically have an unscripted show doing it too.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think are some of the challenges for aspiring writers and creators as they pitch to the studios? What are the studios looking for?
Oh, I think one of the biggest mistakes any of us can make is to say to the studios and the networks, what are you looking for? And we always say that to our clients, and more than ever that has paid off. What they're really looking for, not that we don't all know that ABC Family is appealing to a certain demographic, or Netflix is a 4-quadrant mega network, and they literally want to appeal to everything from the coast to the middle of the country and beyond. So we have the basics down. Really what they're looking for is the subjects that people are most passionate about. Mm-hmm. And I do agree with you that it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. It's a little bit of bringing girls who are normally, let's say, involved in playwriting or whatever, giving them enough scientific exposure that they're curious, and that is melded together in a way educationally that those stories will come forth naturally. But then also, I'm sitting here thinking about shows like Madam Secretary. Well, there's every reason there could be a science arc on that show. And yet it's much more likely that it would be global politics related. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a little bit the chicken and the egg. And I'm even sitting here feeling like I will now feel more empowered to pitch, a scientist and engineering background when the client comes in and says, What about a doctor? Not that a doctor isn't a scientist, but that's a more commonly pitched female character. Or what about a lawyer? Or what about an FBI agent? And so I think that a lot of it's this conversation and then starting to plant those ideas.
And out of all of the pitches that are made, and looking at this, what we had this afternoon, I mean, how many in real life are actually seeing their concepts making it to pilot, let alone series? I mean, what are the statistics?
Oh, the statistics are not that great. Although a lot more is getting made.
Yes.
So, but I would say in your average development cycle, you tell me, like
I know
5 out of 100 or
I know. Yeah, I mean, in terms of making a pilot, probably somewhere in there, yeah, but I think it's really the things that go to the distance are really inspired ideas and really kind of deep rooted, passionate creators that have a really strong vision and can execute against that vision. So it's tough numbers, but it's a worthwhile enterprise.
So what did you see in the early stages of Stitchers? What stood out there, maybe that the whole concept stood out for you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we had done research and it just even kind of hearing through the world that young adults, 20-somethings, really were loving procedurals. We hadn't launched a procedural on our network before, and that our audience was really craving seeing these close-ended stories, figuring out the cases. Most of us like to really think we're smart, and when you're watching along and figuring things out and being stimulated in that way, that was really exciting for us to hear feedback from our audience that was a place they wanted to go. So when Stitchers came to us, I think it was a combination of it being a type of show, a procedural that we hadn't done before, and us wanting to really break into that space, combined with this amazing character and story, which really is the lead, which is a young female scientist, and she is a grad student in computer science, and she has a huge, interesting backstory, and she has an interesting way she interacts with people. And so I think it was a combination of a type of show, obviously it was a great script, and a character that you just want to keep coming back to that feels fresh, interesting, and that you could really peel back the layers on. And the fact that it was in the science world was fantastic.
And who is the audience that you're trying to reach?
We target, we call them becomers. It's older teens, 20-somethings, and early 30s.
So how important is a social action campaign or a social media campaign that will be a complement to the show in reaching that particular audience?
It's very important. I think that really what we're finding and audiences, whether you're talking about the audience that we target or any audiences, are savvier than ever. They really want to touch, feel engaged, and they really want to know, dive deeper. What is this really about? How can I really further engage in it? Whether it's just following a fictitious story or delving deeper into the themes of what the show is covering. So I think all of that is fair game. We, with our show, The Fosters, which has really broken ground, we have a STEM storyline actually that is going over 2 seasons about Marina, who's one of our teen characters, who is a popular, pretty dancer girl, but she also is getting involved in the sciences in school. And so that has been a huge pro-social. That show has a lot of pro-social themes. So our audience is for sure interested. They want to care. They do care, and we try and fan those flames because it's important.
And when we talk about the strategies for the marketing campaigns or the social media campaigns for these types of shows, are we looking at, is it important both to the studios, but also to the potential advertisers to look at the characters or storylines, or is it life outside of the show? What are they looking for? And I don't know if you have some thoughts on that.
Oh, well, I hate to say this, but they're looking for instant branding.
Right.
When you think about a CSI, you know exactly what you're going to get. I mean, the way that something like the ABC family, when you look at the Fosters, well, they're foster kids. I mean, you have a name that brands
Easily
your show, absolutely. But there's a million ways you could do with that. You could have a show called Nano, and it would be all about nanotechnology. And so there's so much that you could do that would reflect scientific themes as well. But I hate to say it, they're really trying to break through in a crowded marketplace.
So is this Women in Tech going to be like the new flavor of the month for the next season? I mean, you've got 4 or 5 shows. We heard about a Netflix MC Squared, about 4 young girls that are scientists that are recruited to be in a spy agency that's going to launch in just a few weeks. Is this the new trend for the next season?
That's a great question. You know, it's definitely having a big moment now, but I don't think that it's going to go away. I really don't. I think that having these stories are catching on. People are really engaging with them, and obviously a huge part of the business is eyeballs and capturing imagination and holding that. So I think the more popular it stays, the longer it will last. But I think the appetite for intelligent programming is only growing, and that I think that beautifully marries with these themes.
And Anne, in your work, do you find that if there's a successful show like a Silicon Valley, that you're going to get others that suddenly that's the focus?
Well, that's kind of one of the mistakes people make, is they come in and pitch the next derivative idea. And honestly, it really backfires. I mean, if we hear something too close, then we immediately go, well, let's look at that, a little differently. We have to be very careful about that. One thing I don't think people are as aware of, and it would absolutely apply to launching a character with a breakthrough female scientist at the lead, is the fact that most of the shows that we sell that get on the air, I don't know if I should say most, but a lot of them are what we call large packages, which is not a financial equation, that's part of it, but it's also something really important, which is it's having a big piece of IP. So like Bones really got on the air. Yes, Hart Hanson was an incredible creator, but Bones was an extremely successful series of books. So even for young creators, you can option material. There are so many books that are in print, out of print, available for option that have interesting angles in. You don't even have to use every aspect of the book. You could pull out one character and say, oh, and I have that, and then I'm going to write the pilot, and perhaps this person could executive produce it with me, and then perhaps this director would want to get on board, and you're nodding your head, but you know that when it comes in fully formed, and we do what's called straight-to-series programming, which sometimes, like House of Cards was straight-to-series programming, that's because you have such an influential group of people saying, we would like to make this. We will either make it for you, Netflix, or we will make it for one of 4 other places, because we have sort of a groundswell of support under our idea. And as I sit here, I'm really thinking about having Chris Lawson, our researcher, research who are the female science characters that have not been utilized and build one of those packages around it. But that is kind of how things are getting on the air, not all the time, but often, is through these combination of elements.
And do you think that science can get in the way of a good story?
Well, we always like to say that story does trump science, but that science can actually improve story. You can, with the right science advisor, and it really is about picking the right science advisor, and we're very careful about how we curate that experience. Science doesn't have to get in the way. In fact, when we see these relationships, when Amy and Rick, who work full-time at the Exchange, when they put these partnerships together, that it really is an improvement of the process, because the right scientist can find a way to make the story sing with science as opposed to being clunky. Now, you can get the scientist who really will focus only on accuracy and say, there is no sound in space. It cannot make that big explosion. But then you have the scientists that say, I understand you're asking me, what is it going to be like when this happens? And Seth Shostak, who works for SETI, he often says that when he works with writers and with the creative community, that's what he listens to. I want to know, what it would be like. Okay, well, what it would be like, and you're looking for plausibility, not just accuracy. And I think that that's what audiences are looking for. They want to know that it hangs together in a story, but it's about the hook. If you get too focused on accuracy, that's when I think it does get in the way of the story. But if you just find something where it's that right marriage, then you hook people and you get them excited. I would submit that Star Trek, at the time that I was running around with my phaser, was not accurate, but it was sure inspiring.
The greatest thing is that when I'll get a script for Stitchers and there's a story or there's a point about science and there's just no way this can be true. And we call it out with the writers. They're like, no, it actually happened. Right. It's true. I'm like, no way. But then they send me articles and that's amazing, really, when you can be super accurate and you're.
Yes, and it can be. Or you can be totally non-accurate. In fact, San Andreas, the film that just came out, yes, we did have a consultant on that film, and it was a member of the National Academy of Sciences, whose name I will not mention because he'd probably be very unhappy if I did, on the one hand. But on the other hand, and I think The Rock was actually on national television saying, we consulted with the National Academy of Sciences. The science is all accurate. Okay, I would love to be plucked out of the San Andreas fault line just as I'm about to be sucked down by The Rock. I don't think that would be accurate science. On the other hand, it was an incredibly useful, teachable moment because there was more written about earthquake science and earthquake safety in the 2 weeks that film was being actively marketed by the studios. There was an opportunity. There was a scientist from the University of Washington who created, I think, a 2-minute video on the real science behind earthquake safety. And it had like 800,000 downloads in a weekend. And that member of the National Academy of Sciences who originally was, embarrassed by his association with this, I think he was, on the front page of the Los Angeles Times being interviewed about this. So there are opportunities even when it seems like the science has been either abandoned because it might have gotten in the way, that there still is an opportunity to bring it back together and make it useful.
So as we're coming together for the finals of the Next MacGyver competition, maybe with some closing thoughts from each and every one of you, some advice to, creators out there who are pitching storylines with female engineers, and maybe some selling tips as well. What advice would you give? Anne?
Well, I would just make sure that she is kind of a living, breathing, flawed, interesting, complex character who has chosen this fascinating field as a career. So just,
it's about character.
It's about character combined with
a good story.
With good story and with science, exactly.
And in terms of selling it and pitching it?
Well, in terms of selling it and pitching it, I think, be thoughtful about what is in the marketplace, know pretty much everything out there. I'm always amazed when somebody will come in and be like, well, I don't really watch a lot of television. And I always explain to them, I didn't grow up with a TV, but I've made up for it. So I consider it my responsibility to watch one of everything on television in the scripted space. So I give my clients the same challenge.
And now alternative platforms, too.
Yes, and so you really have to be aware of what's out there. And then also be innovative. Don't just walk into a manager or an agent and say, here's my idea. Come in and say, here's my idea, and I saw a series of articles, and I could either option them or I could get a book, and I think this supports what I want to say about my character, and here's the 5 people I'd like to have star in it. I know that they might be too hard to get, but I really want to show you that I've thought deeply about how to do this.
Okay, really
and so
good
I
advice.
think you almost have to be your own sort of little mini studio, and then other people sort of get on board with the dream.
Great, good salesperson. Marcy?
I concur with so much of what Anne said, and I think additionally to that, I think really figure out for this character why people are going to care. Because whether that's that she is a scientist or she is a politician or she is a high school teacher, why, especially in television, why is an audience going to care? Why are they going to come back? Why are they going to emotionally connect week in, week out with what this character's journey is? And I think in terms of selling tips, definitely, have a vision for the show. And really, I think the biggest thing with series television, I find, in addition to really needing to fall in love with your characters and have them be unique and have the hook of the series really stand out, it's really knowing what the engine of the show is. How are you going to get 100 episodes out of this show? What are the conflicts? What are the obstacles? Because TV is amazing. It's intense. Unlike features, you have to tell one story and hopefully a trilogy and sequels, but TV, you have to keep people wanting to come back every single week and really have a crystal clear idea of what the engine is going to be that's going to generate your stories every week.
Okay, Danielle?
I think that one of the things I would love to see is that people find science and technology very intimidating, which I think is one of the reasons that Amy Schumer doesn't make her character a scientist. It's intimidating. People are freaked out by it in a lot of ways. And I think the truth is, if you work hard at it and you're passionate about it, you can do it. And so I think it would be great to have some female characters that aren't total geniuses or have the double PhD. Do people really have double PhDs?
They do.
But to have some of, regular female characters that are clever and they work hard and they're passionate, and if they're shy, they have moments of power too. And so, as someone who's formerly very shy, like I love seeing those clips where those women are standing up for what they believe in, or they're having this moment of like, no, I know what I'm talking about. And so I think that having these sort of well-rounded characters that aren't on the extremes are really, really important in terms of selling to the girls out there that this is something that's awesome to do.
Okay. Anne?
Well, I would say two things. I think that certainly if you're creating something that involves science, you should actually talk to a science or engineer. It can be very helpful. But I would also say that this actually matters. That it's, I think that for a writer, it's, well, I'm writing a story. These stories really matter. There is an enormous literature base that demonstrates that this actually has impact. Television is a form of accidental curriculum. Whether we want this to be true or not, people learn an enormous amount from what they watch on television. I think that we can all think of those moments where we're storytelling animals. There's a book by that title. And so stories are indelible. They stick with us. And so those moments, those things that you see on TV, you pick up stuff from them, and those stories make a difference. So when you sit down to craft these pitches and put these things together, they actually do matter beyond just the story. They really can make a difference to people.
I think that the judges' work might be complete, so I think we're all anxious to hear about our winners. Is that accurate?
That's exactly right.
All right, so I want to thank the panelists for participating in our conversation. Thank you.
Is this mic on? Hello? Oh. And thank you, Catherine, for moderating as well. Thank you to everybody. And it's that time, everybody. Drum roll, please. Please welcome back all of our illustrious judges. We're going to play a name game because they've switched seats. This is going to be fun. And now, to announce the winning finalists of the Next MacGyver Competition, it is my pleasure to welcome the creator and executive producer of MacGyver and the head of the MacGyver Foundation, the reason we're all here, Mr. Lee Zlotloff.
So, we wanted to know if we should give everybody a trophy, but we didn't have time to do a trophy. So, oh, thank you. Does this mic not work? This works? Okay, this is good. All right. So we have a sort of ersatz trophy for them, and you'll see what it is in a second. And I know you're all excited to hear the winners, just as I'm excited to announce the winners. But I want to take a few minutes to say thank you to certain people. First of all, I want to thank the judges and the mentors. The mentors still have a lot of work to do, but it was a hot and heated room, let me tell you. I certainly want to thank the other sponsors, USC Viterbi School of Engineering, National Academy of Engineering, the UEF, Google, and Ford. This has been an amazing experience, I know, for all involved. And the winners will certainly enjoy the fruits of this, which is $5,000 plus the chance to be mentored by one of these extraordinary Hollywood talents. But I want to talk to the people who didn't win. And since you don't know who you are, you all have to listen. The reason I want to talk to those who didn't win is because if you didn't win, it doesn't really matter. And the reason it doesn't really matter is because failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is the seedbed of success. Every one of these judges, whether they're in engineering or entertainment, has failed, probably a lot more than once. I have failed, they have failed. anyone who takes up any of these endeavors experiences failure. It is not the end of the line. It is not the end of the game. It is the beginning. And just because you succeeded in this competition doesn't necessarily mean your show is going to end up on the air. We don't know what's going to happen. Hollywood is a place where virtually anything can happen, and probably will. So, if you didn't win, try and remember, it doesn't matter. You were one of 12 that came out of nearly 2,000 submissions. And thank you. And the importance of this competition is not necessarily that we get one of these shows on the air, although that is obviously what we are going to put our energy and intention in trying to do. The important part of this competition is that we had this competition, and the bell got rung, and the song got sung, and the speeches got made, and once again we have said to the world, women need to be part of the solution to fixing the problems on this planet. And if we don't encourage them to do that, then it is all at our peril. And for that reason alone, we have succeeded, and you have succeeded, and we have already won. And I thank you for that. Now for the drama. So, our first winner in the Next MacGyver competition is Miranda Sajdak for riveting. Come here, Miranda. And Miranda and her project will be mentored by Clayton Kruger and Ridley Scott's Scott Free Productions. And by way of a trophy, which we didn't have, you get an official roll of MacGyver duct tape, which is not yet available in stores. Our second winner of the first Next MacGyver competition is Beth Keser for Rule 702. And Beth is going to be mentored by Revelations Entertainment, Morgan Freeman, Laurie McCreary, and Tracy Mercer. Our third winner is Jayde Lovell for SECs. And Jayde will be mentored by Roberto Orsi. Our second to last winner of the Next MacGyver competition is Craig Motlong for Q Branch. And Craig will be mentored by CSI creator Anthony Zucker, who unfortunately could not be here today, but I have been asked on his behalf to congratulate Craig and to say that Anthony's associate, Jonathan, who's here, will meet with you to set up a time to meet with Anthony before you leave town. Okay, I'll get this sorted out in a second, I promise. And our final winner for the Next MacGyver competition is Shanee Edwards for Ada and the Machine. And Shanee will be mentored by Take Fountain Productions, America Ferrara, and Bree Neiman. As it turns out, we have one roll of tape left. Since the market price has been established at $5,000, I will open the bidding there. Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate your participation.
From all of us at the Paley Center, thank you so much for joining us for the Next MacGyver competition. Thanks so much to USC Viterbi School of Engineering, National Academy of Engineering, the MacGyver Foundation, Google, Ford, and UEF. Please, those of you who are here with us, join us upstairs on the rooftop for a reception. We're going to have cocktails and hors d'oeuvres, so please join us upstairs. Thanks, everybody.
Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to say. Win